live now. We're all set. Joseph, the camera off kar dijiye khali. I'm also switching off my camera now. Play the video and we can go live. Good afternoon, everybody. A warm welcome. These are discussions happening in the Women's Day week. So naturally, it must have already been guessed from our discussions that we are trying to see how to make sense of the global UN theme this year, which is Digital with BW. I am Noor Varsia. I'm the Group Editorial Director of Business World. And with me, I've got my colleague, Resham Suhail. Resham is our editor for the Startup Beat, and she speaks to many powerful women entrepreneurs, considering that's the flavor that has been of the last couple of years, in addition to what we have seen among the women leaders in India. But today she's our host as a double hat. And Resham, why don't I let you kick this off with a little bit on what we'll be doing today.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you. It is my pleasure to be your host for today. We are here to celebrate International Women's Day, and for today, the theme is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. This theme is aligned with what most of our women thought leaders across the industries are doing. Innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. Going forward, we will be inviting women thought leaders and many more women who are leading their beats across the industries to have deeper discussions on how technology has played a very significant role in terms of bringing more women into leadership roles and to lead the front. For today, these discussions we are doing under the banner of BW Business World's Most Influential Women Initiative. And I am also looking forward to learn many new things today from women leaders. We will be having women leaders from across the sectors, from healthcare sector, from HR sector, from well-being, and much more. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Resham. Thank you so much. Good job. To everybody, of course, I'm not going to eat into the first panel's time because I saw some of the speakers. I was hearing their discussions, and I have to say that I'm looking forward to it more than everybody else. The only thing I want to put out there is what did we mean by digital with BW? What did we mean by technology for equality? Now, technology should have had been equal. There was the starting point more or less was the same, but like all else, where the starting points are the same, but things become different later. The reason why this theme makes sense for this year, and from our perspective at Business World, is because technology can play the role in economic empowerment of women. We often internally argue, is it even right to use the word women empowerment anymore? Considering we are empowered, all sections know as much as possible the different kind of laws the government has kicked in, industry has kicked in, and various bodies have kicked in to empower women or inform them about their empowerment rights. However, it doesn't translate on ground. And the proof of this can be seen in the fact that India ranks 135 on 146. I'm sure everybody's going to quote this number at some point between the next couple of days, between today and tomorrow. But 135 of 146 in the Women Economic Forum of Gender Gap, which is not cool, unfortunately. which means that our empowerment ideas or the ways we are doing it is lacking in some way, and hence the trajectory. Unfortunately, if you look at the trajectory of the last 4 years, India actually declines. Now, there are various ways to explain this, but there is really no sensible conversation where these numbers make sense. Therefore, technology for equality must kick in. There are two parts to this. One, how can we use technology as an enabler, which is pretty much how we saw the rise of the entrepreneurs, wherein technology and mobile phones allowed a lot of people to start their businesses. Where do we see, or how much can we push that forth so that there's accessibility for women to be able to utilize that and grow? Numbers are bad in this. I'm unfortunately quoting 2020 numbers, but the scenes are not very different. Now, according to the GSMA report, women are 8% less likely than men to own a mobile phone in India at the moment, and 20% less likely to be on the internet. There was an economist report that was also done same year, wherein it was discussed that almost 85% of the women who are online witness or experience harassment or violence of some forms. Now, two very different metrics, but it shows that embracing equality where technology is not going to be that easy. Tech for equality, it is not going to be that easy, even if we bring together the intersection of grassroots voices and leaders come together to generate commitment, it's still not be easy. With that, I want to go away. I want to open the floor for my very senior colleague, Jyotsna, and her panel, which has even more senior leaders, but all amazing women, and most importantly, amazing leaders. Women are not. That's what, differentiates them and what they're doing. Idea is to remain consistent, collective, and diverse as we grow. With that, I'm going to wish everybody the best of luck, and back to you, Resham.
Thank you so much, ma'am. To add to what you said, what numbers you quoted, the silver lining is there. And a recent survey showed that there is a 35% surge in the job openings for women in white collar job sector, just because the leaders are now recognizing the women's capability across the sectors. Without further ado, we would like to invite our first panel, which will be talking about the economic cost of gender inequity. I would like to invite senior leaders in the panel. Ms. Debanjali Sen Gupta, Country Head, Shell Lubricants India. We have Dipali Nair, who is Director, Digital Sales India, IBM. We have Jaya Vidyanathan, CEO of BCT Digital. We have Lavanya Nalli, who is Vice Chairman, Nalli Silk Sarees. We have Dr. Punita Kumar Sinha, Independent Director, former Senior MD, Blackstone. And to moderate the conversation with these senior ladies, we have our own Ms. Jyotsna Sharma, who is Senior Editor with BW Business World.
Thank you. Thank you, Resham.
Over to you.
Thank you, Noor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you've heard from my colleagues, Noor and Resham, about our focus on digital. You have heard a lot of numbers. And like Noor rightly said, 135, actually, it is a number that makes you sit up and take notice. In fact, I'll add to that, Bangladesh and Nepal outperform India in terms of gender equality. So without getting into more numbers, let's begin the discussion. So let me start with you, ma'am, Ms. Vaidyanathan. I'll ask you the first question. India needs a strong focus on gender equality. What is your view on this?
It absolutely does, because you talked about the economic cost of gender equality. And, gender equality has cost the world 70 billion since 1990. We're talking about more numbers. More fundamental than numbers, what numbers portray, is the fact that we're underutilizing 50% of our population overall. And that means a lot. It means a lot of economic capital is going to waste. It means a lot of talent is going to waste. And it needs to start all the way from grassroots levels, all the way to corporates and the board. We can separate it by rural India, which is slightly more conducive in terms of the women actually coming into workplace because they have to. Yeah. Is the corporate India, where it is more a choice, which is exercised by not the general population. It's not exercised by women. So where is the question of empowerment, right? And you take it all the way to the board, and you see that while in India, it's been a healthy percentage increase, and stands at 18% as per the ENY survey, but still 18% is still underrepresented. I've had the opportunity to work on global international boards, and I see that the percentage is, I was working for a French board, and we had no men on the board. It is target extreme of gender equality in that sense. So we still have a long way to go.
Yeah. So I'll come to you, Ms. Nalli. We have made strides, and the conversation about gender equality, it is mainstream right now. Corporates are taking it seriously, and of course other sectors too. What are your views on how we can push gender equality?
Thank you for that. So my view on this, I think, and I've said it many times, there needs to be a systemic approach to, number one, understanding the problem, and then number two, addressing the root of the problem. And the way that I look at it is it really requires a multi-pronged approach at a societal level. So policymakers do have their, they have something to add to this. Those who are in corporates, those who are both at leadership positions, who are on board positions in whatever aspect within the corporate ecosystem. And also I would go a little bit further and say, when we talk about society, right, that these norms need to change across society, I would even bring it all the way down to the family unit, right? And I think that all women, there, men and women, also bear a certain responsibility for ensuring that if we say as a nation that the progress of women, the advancement of women across social parameters, across economic parameters matter, then we can't outsource the problem merely to policymakers and to corporates. Now, policymakers have done their bit and they can continue to do their bit, and we've heard some of the statistics that was indicated earlier. But just to give you an example, 18% of women are now, the representation of women on boards now seems to be 18%. I think 10 years ago, it was closer to 5 or 6%. So we have made some inroads there, right? Over and above, I think at the corporate level, other than policies at the corporate level, things like flexible working hours and so on and so forth, role modeling, mentorship programs, women for women, right? Not just having access to mentors, but having access to sponsors, understanding at a very deep level for all of the women in the workforce, why is it that some women continue to progress at work while others don't? What is it that's different about these women than that allows them to progress versus the others who fall out of the workplace? And I would say this is a place where we really need to have a very deep understanding, which goes beyond shallow understanding, beyond judgment. So say, oh, okay, some women are just not, it's not that. Most likely what you're going to find out when you peel back the layers is that the women who are able to progress have a support system that is a reliable support system, right? Unfortunately, your prime working years just come into clash with your prime biological years, right? For one half of the workforce. And so because women are the only ones who can have kids as of now, they're going to be pulled out of the workforce if they don't have a reliable support system, which can take over those aspects of their responsibility so that the woman can go back into the workplace.
I'm going to bring in Ms. Sinha here. In fact, Ms. Sinha, thank you for joining us. She's joining us from the US. It's very early in the morning there right now. Ms. Sinha, can we have your views on this?
So I think obviously it's very, very important for policymakers to play a role and intervene in at critical junctions to promote more women. So I think the policymakers actually did a great job on boards. So by instituting that there should be at least one woman director on every board initially in 2013, that led to a flurry of activity where companies were forced to bring in women on their boards. And I now see that on many of the boards that I'm on, that there's actually not just one woman director, in some cases 2 or 3. So, and this is not happening because there's any policy dictating it, because the policy was only for one woman. But now companies are finding that women are adding a lot of value. So they're bringing many more women on their board voluntarily. So I think sometimes policymakers need to just do a little bit nudging, and that nudging itself then leads to a trend. I think the other trend that I think will really be quite helpful for the Indian corporate sector is the business responsibility reporting that is being mandated by SEBI. So that requires that every company has to do a number of disclosures in their annual reports, and including gender parity in terms of what is their gender mix, what are the salaries, and that, I think, by making those important disclosures, companies will realize and see other companies' disclosures and say, look at their own disclosures and realize perhaps they're not meeting the peer benchmarks. And I think that will again stimulate a lot of activity and bring a lot of women at all levels. So I think the hiring for women is going to definitely increase. And then I think the other thing policymakers have done that has really helped is that we also have to develop the pool of talent and the pipeline, which we don't also have currently because women were underrepresented in the educational sectors earlier. But now you talked about the 135 out of the 147, but in education, it's 107, India's rank. So it's still not great, but it's better than at all levels. And so institutions are now having some quotas for women. And those women actually not even need the quotas anymore because women are doing far better academically across all exams. And so at least in the IITs where I went, there were 1% to 2% women during my time. Now we are about 15 to 20% women. So that initial push that the government did a few years ago has led to now a lot more women just taking the exam because they felt they had a chance. And then now naturally women are getting in. So I think all of these things policymakers have done a good job with, and I think we'll see more of that coming.
Ms. Sen Gupta, so we've spoken about support, we've spoken about policy. Tell me, what can corporates do to push gender equality?
And thanks for the question. The corporates actually can do so much more because I somehow feel that the corporates have the power within themselves. They really don't have to depend on anybody outside. There is a few tick box on the policies that if corporates want, that is, I would say, a good starting point, but that's not progress, at least the way I look at it. So progress is going to come when corporates will take a step ahead than what the policy is asking them to do. So at least in Shell, the way I look at it, Shell is very clear that what is actually the reason that women, as Lavanya was saying, that drop off at a certain point of time. When you look at the pipeline, you will exactly know there is this pattern and you can catch that pattern, that is where they're going to drop off. Either they're moving with their husbands or they're having a family and taking a step back without a proper care and supported back at home. They're not being able to come back. I think, and societal pressure of them being the primary caregiver for people at home. So very clearly in Shell, where we went ahead and said, first, we need to have women mentors and men as well to just stand with these ladies who've gone through the same journey. So I went through the same journey of being a mom. I went through the same journey of having a spouse who had a very, very demanding profession of being in investment banking. And it was very clear that my experiences are real experiences that I can share in my mentorship circle with our teams, right? With other ladies who are going through this. The other bit is very clearly in our corporate policy, the parental leave. 6 months of maternity, but now there is a paternity leave and 2 months of paternity leave where you are asking that Mr. Husband, you have to be a caregiver as well, right? And you are asking them to do that. The other bit is the flexibility. If you are allowing them long before hybrid working, Shell had always this very clear, flexible work from home policy. And this was an arrangement that you can have a good discussion, you can have with your manager and agree about a certain flexible work timing, which allowed many of the mothers to continue, young mothers to continue. And this has been some of the examples that at least I have personally also benefited from. And it's very clearly coming out that this creating a nurturing environment for the women and telling them that you really matter. And whatever is in your life phases, we're right there with you. and there is a maternity toolkit so that people are talking to them. There is even we initially, before COVID, there was a proper creche that we opened in our offices so that they could bring their children along. And these are things that we have. And the other bit which we really do is that starting the whole journey of education, support of women in professions which is not the usual one that they go to. So which is in commercial roles, in technology roles, and engineering background. These are the areas we really support women to come in so that you are not losing out people in many of the areas to be their productive self.
So you spoke about mentorship. You know, I was speaking to a group of women, and I've read about this as well. It's interesting that they say that when they take maternity leave and when they come back to an organization, strangely, they are unable to start at that position where they left off. So I think maybe mentorship at that time, like you're saying, it really helps, because not only is it career progress, but also you pick up where you left off, and your mentor can guide you in that. I will bring in Ms. Nair here to get her views. Ma'am, tell us a little bit about what kind of policies that corporates can focus on specifically that, you know, we can then push gender equality with.
So Jyotsna, while I was listening to Lavanya and, you know, Dipanjali just now, the problem to my mind is looking after the pipeline. Okay. So we also, let me add to the statistics over here, we've actually got lesser VPs and CEO -1, -2 women. So we're going to face that problem for the next 5 years again. You know, so if we're saying less than 5% women in Fortune 500 companies globally and in India, you're going to see even lesser, not more, because, you know, you don't have the pipeline, right? Same is the case, and I will come to the corporate policy bit that you're talking about, right? And I think Dipanjali very well put, this is about pipeline. If the women are just going off ramps, you know, how do you ensure that you kind of, you know, let them stay in? But it all starts at the bottom. So on one side, you know, you have, you know, the sugarcane workers' hysterectomy issues that we've heard of, right? They're forced to have hysterectomy so that, you know, they can come to work. You know, we ourselves work with, in IBM, we work with STEM for Girls. And there, the tier 4 towns and in rural areas, women are actually discouraged by their families to take up STEM as education because, you know, it's difficult for families to support and so on and so forth later on, right? So, you know, one is the corporate organizations need to have active, you know, CSR policies along with the government to ensure that that pipeline is improving from a mindset perspective in the country. Okay, this is a societal context, you know, and that is where corporates can play a role. And the CSR funds can be utilized, you know, for that. The second, I think is very well documented now, whether it's a maternity policy, flexible, you know, work hours and so on and so forth, is something that the corporates have been doing for a while. The programs are working, and I think it may have improved the base pipeline, which is, you know, college into corporates, college into, you know, 0 to 5 years working and 0 to 7 years working. You actually find the diversity ratios which have gotten better over the years. You know, when I joined the workforce 30 years ago, nobody had even heard of D&I initiatives. You know, so things have improved at that level. When you're recruiting from colleges, recruiting from campuses, you know, participation inside colleges, you know, like Punita mentioned, you know, so all those have improved. But what is not improved is actually this IWD's, you know, theme, which is embracing equity. How to ensure that you have more women CEOs, for example. If you were to just look at that, you know, the how-to needs to be made better. We have made equal policies because we want to achieve equality, but maybe it's time for you to have unequal policies for women to get the acceleration. I said, think about that, right? 2-3 areas that we must look at. One is, you know, the gender pay gap. Can the boards ensure that they report, you know, that there is no gender pay gap? You know, let's look at policies such as those. Can the boards report when they're doing senior management recruitments that they did have, you know, the search was given a fair chance, that, you know, they tried their best to recruit women candidates and they didn't find enough? You know, can the boards be held responsible and, you know, ask that question? I think these are some of the things that need to be done, which is what I'm referring to as, you know, the equity, embracing equity, unequal, you know, reporting in policies to say, okay, what do we do to achieve equality? because otherwise it's still going to take us 70 to 100 years. And this is statistic which is reported. 70 to 100 years it will take for, for us to be actually equal participants, in the workforce. So I think not some tough questions need to be asked, because, Punita, I agree the independent director policy has worked, but I think it's about pushing the envelope a little further and saying, let's ask the boards to report, just like today we report on CSR and, a lot of the independent director bit, for example. Let's also ask that question on senior leadership, gender ratio, what is being done and what has been done. I think that's where I would talk about policy making.
Wonderful. So we should have some unequal policies then. I like that.
If you want to achieve equality. See, that's a theme today, embracing equity. It's about the how to.
Yeah, I love it.
Jyotsna, if I could just add to
Anji.
Dipali, what you said, which is that the business responsibility reporting that SEBI's mandated actually does require this kind of disclosure. It requires gender metrics in companies and also pay gaps.
Yeah.
So I know Ms. Sen Gupta has a hard stop, so I'm going to come to her and I'm going to ask you, tell us about a particular challenge that you faced as a working woman, how you overcame it, and has it shaped you to be the leader that you are today?
Yeah, good question. And it makes me self-reflect a bit, but it just feels like I've started long back. So like when Dipali was mentioning that when she joined in, there was hardly any women. Yes, say 18 years ago, when I came into the energy industry, there was hardly anybody to look up to, right? So I was writing my own playbook and how do I get in and navigate my way in. But I think it helped to just raise my hand for most of the things, because believing myself that I was equal was the first step that I took. I was raising my hand for every opportunity. What happened is that not necessarily was everybody used to seeing women with hands raised up. So that was something that I would rather say that it was a learning opportunity for others who saw me with hands raised up rather than me putting my hand down. I think that was the only thing that when I look back was what I did right. I didn't put my hand down for whatever it took, even if I saw uncomfortable glares. But I think end of the day, I will say if I was extremely conscious at the same time that, okay, if somebody is betting on me, investing in me and giving me an opportunity, which was the first time, of course, there is a bit of an element of uncertainty. I will do such a good job that then, the person who was doubting at least has climbed over the learning curve. So when that was happening, I would say over and over time, you build a personal brand, and then you might be delayed, but you will never be denied. But I think the purpose that I took over time was that if I give up, I have actually closed an opportunity for many who are watching me and coming behind me. And that was the key driver. And I then gradually I saw many supporting men on the way. And when I look back, I thank them as well, because it wasn't possible that you would say, I was chopping off the barriers all by myself. No, that was a wrong thing. I gradually built my village and I gradually had support.
Wonderful. And before I let you go, a woman leader that you look up to.
And you guys.
When I was just thinking about a woman leader that I look up to, I would really say, first thing that there would be many, but the first one that came to my mind was Kiran Bedi, because she was really trying her level best to forge into a place which was the most unexpected of women. And I think that's what I most learned from, because in energy industry, I was honestly one of the first comers in most of the things in India. And then I was just thinking, well, she has a tougher job and she still managed and still didn't give up. Then there is examples. If not anything else, I can learn from the way that she fought the challenges. And I think most of the challenges were up there in the mind.
Yeah. Most of the challenges are usually up there in the mind. You're right.
I just have to say I was right. Last week in a industry forum, and it was an industry meeting of all energy leaders. I was sitting on a panel, and from India, out of 6 men, I was 1 woman, right? And then we said, yes, we have to do something about diversity. And that was a topic, because it was so glaring that I was 1 woman in energy. But there was another lady who was from the US, and she was an engineer, but from the CEO's panel, I was the only one. And then we often said, but we were somehow trying to justify by saying, yes, yes, by the way, energy is a male-dominated industry. And the justification at one point of time, I had to raise my hand up like old days and said, sorry, I have a problem. It isn't a male-dominated industry. Yes, when you walk into the room, you see a lot of people wearing pants, which is absolutely fine. But if you can bring the value on the table, I think that's the only thing that dominates, because the brain has no gender. Yeah. And you have to really understand that. And they said, yes, yes, next time should be 50% women. I said, okay, that's a tall claim to make, but let's start at least. Let's hope for that.
So brain has no gender. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Sengupta.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful panel. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. So I'll come to you, Ms. Sinha. Let's talk a little bit about women mentoring women, your views on it. And also, like I asked Ms. Sengupta, if you'd like to share a challenge that has shaped you to be the leader that you are today.
Okay, great. So first of all, on women mentoring, I think I've actually had very good experience on male mentoring. I think women mentoring will happen more and more as more women come into senior leadership position. But until then, we need male mentors, and we need men to support and believe in the women. And I've been very fortunate in my career that, of course, during my time in the 80s and 90s when I was working, there were no women. Hardly any women at senior roles. So I needed some, every time I got a break, it was because there was an emancipated man on the other side who believed in me and gave me the opportunity and then supported me. But I think going forward, given that there are many more women in senior leadership positions, it's very important for women to mentor other women. And I think even if you don't mentor, by just being present in a role or being there and doing the things that you're doing also inspires younger women. And they just look up to you, they follow you, and they reach out to you, and they read your stories. And the panels like this one, they all are inspirational to women. So yes, I do believe that women mentorship is important, and many organizations are setting up women initiatives where they're just creating networking opportunities just for women in firms, and that gives a platform for women to interact with other women and look out for other women. So I think that's very important. Now, you talked about a challenge that I faced. So I go back to, I faced, of course, all of us face many challenges. But this was a challenge that was very early on in my career, and I could easily have given up. So when I was doing my PhD in finance at University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School, I was the only woman in my class. And that too, a brown woman. They never really had, brown women in the PhD program, let alone, women. And then to complicate matters, I also became a mother during my coursework, and that was something they just couldn't handle. Is like, how first we have a woman, and now this woman is, and they literally use the words, now she's gone and got pregnant. Now she's gone and delivered a child. Like, what do we do with her? Should we support her because she's going to quit and she's not going to finish? And so I was determined to finish. And I fought my way through in terms of like winning their support. And I came up with a PhD thesis topic that was so original that I ended up finishing my PhD before any of the other students in my class. So that made them realize that, women can do it no matter in whatever capacity. And then I think that has increased. I believe that, led the path for more women coming into some of these PhD programs. And that was important for me to finish my PhD and to do that, because then that gave me the opportunity to take on jobs that were, otherwise not open for women. And so that's what was very important in my journey, as a very starting point, was to really persuade the men that women and mothers can do it.
So I know that we've gone over time, but I do need to ask, and I do need to ask you all for your closing remarks. But before I do that, I want to go to Miss Nali because, you know, after what you said, Miss Sinha, I know that Miss Nali has had a similar experience. Miss Nali, can we hear about that? So I remember reading about it.
Okay, I think my experience has been a little bit more relatively more recent, but I think very similar. I started out my career at Nali, but then I went to Harvard Business and graduated 2011. And then I started my career, so to speak, right? That phase of my career with McKinsey, moved back, was with Myntra, and then came back to the family business. So I've had an exposure to the corporate world in the US, the corporate world in India, that startup economy. And then I brought all of that back when I re-entered the family business. And that's gone towards shaping my approach, my leadership, my belief, my values, all of that. Right? And some of it, I completely echo what's been said by my peers before. When I go back to McKinsey, when I was there at McKinsey 2011, 2010, 2011, and 12, there were not that many women partners and even fewer women directors. And the way that mentorship works, and this is the way that I take it, it's not just enough that you have a female leader, you need to also resonate with them. In mentoring someone it's not as straightforward as you just pull two names out of a hat. Because leaders come in so many different styles. So it's also critical that you resonate with that person, right? What is their style? Are they more, like, I know what my style is. I'm passionate, fierce, intense, extroverted, right? Like warm. I'm analytical, but I'm also very sort of direct and vocal, and bring all of me into the workforce. There are other women leaders who are extremely successful, who have a much more tact, diplomacy, a calm-headed demeanor, very analytical. You know, they sort of collect their thoughts. They speak very concisely, but when they do, they get their points across. While they are very strong leaders, I don't know that I might benefit the most from a mentor like that, right? And also on the other side, I don't know that they might want a mentee like me. So I think some of this also goes down to, you can have structural policies, you can have these structured programs, but you just need numbers. You just need more women in positions of authority, in positions of influence, so that those of us who are, or those who are now entering the workforce, against the stories that you're hearing from your family unit, from your spouse, from, you know, the ecosystem that you rely on, you also see something that's a little bit different. For every story that says, oh my gosh, how on earth am I going to do this? I'm stretched on every direction, I've got to fall out of the workforce. You see someone who's made it. You see someone who looks like you, or whom you aspire to be like, and whom you can resonate with. And you see that, okay, they've also got children. They also, you know, they travel for work. They also are one half of a high profile couple where the husband is not an at-home husband. Maybe they don't have parents in the city. Maybe they don't have a mother-in-law who can fly down, and they're making it work. So I think it's very symbolic and very critical that there's visibility, that you're able to see different forms of leadership, different women leaders, and they're all mentors, they're all sponsors. You just need volume, you just need more people in.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Nair, I'd come to you. And a woman leader that you look up to.
You know, I would add to what Lavanya said. I think male mentors, male sponsors, male allyship, I think is an extremely important part of the ingredient, to get us there. And I know you asked on challenges faced, Jyotsna, may not be big challenges, but, I think it just is that much more difficult. You face the challenges on a daily basis sometimes. And a working mother is very different from a working woman, so that phase in life, we must recognize, there is a lot more that gets done. A woman I admire, Oprah Winfrey. I think what matters to me, although she's at the height of her career, but I think to me, what is important is the distance that you travel in your life.
Yeah.
So I come from a very small town. My mom doesn't speak English. My parents paid 250 rupees for my graduation, to send me off to a hostel. My mom sold her gold bangles. She's very proud of me and where I am today. So I think what is also important when we're doing the role modeling is to make young girls believe that the distance that you travel in your life matters a lot. The success definition, I think, needs to change, not for the height, but for the distance that you travel. So thanks, Jyotsna.
Ms. Vaidyanathan, closing remarks from you and a woman leader you look up to.
Yeah, so I think I want to touch upon a little bit of embracing equity, because I think that our biggest journey started and where we're not, gender was never something that I really consciously thought about. And that was the reason I was raised. We were two girls at home and we were treated no differently from the way they would have raised a boy. I've had a very unusual career with a start in Wall Street. And 6 months after I started as an investment banker in New York, there was an interview done on the percentage of women in Wall Street. And they did a survey. And in the building that I was working in, which was like in Manhattan, they couldn't find any women officers other than secretarial audience. So that was something that was a very thought-provoking piece. And I go back to kind of putting your hands up when the tough things happen, volunteering for activities people didn't want to do. When the energy and utilities head left, I said, I'll do that. So I didn't know much about it. To what I am today, which is come through journey and becoming an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, I think it's a very tough job, especially when you're a woman. From kind of introductions to raising funds, to building a business grounds up, to kind of getting that and selling people the vision of you, who you are. It's much more difficult, which is represented by statistics as well. The number of women entrepreneurs that have actually made it big is a very small number. So I think there were challenges all along the way to kind of working on some of the global boards. I think all of that has been a step change when you choose the unusual path. So I think I wouldn't say it any differently. I would just say, quote Robert Frost, what the path that was tougher was more attractive and continues to be so. And we all have miles to go before we sleep. I think the burden of saying who's that one woman leader you identify with or look up to, I think it's like putting the burden of responsibility for everything onto a person. There are things I admire from women who have made it, and there are things I look up to the person that serves me tea on a day-to-day basis, because she's traveled a lot of distance, like Dekali said, to be where she is. And that is something where tenaciousness is something that attracts me a lot. There are some who made it that inspire me to be who they are. So it's a different kind of inspiration, and I wouldn't put the burden of inspiration just on one single person.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much for this discussion. So we spoke about support, we spoke about policy change, we spoke about mentorship, women mentoring women, and of course, believing in yourself. And like Gupta said, the brain does not have any gender. So let's all power on. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Ms. Sharma, for such an insightful discussion, and it was truly inspiring to listen to all of those lovely stories. India has truly come a long way from 30 years ago when nobody was aware of D&I initiatives and gender equality, so to say. Without any delay, I would like to invite our next panel, which will be discussing on the women workforce in the Indian healthcare sector. How can women's participation be increased in the healthcare sector? And for this, we have with us Ms. Ameera Shah, who is promoter and MD for Metropolis Healthcare. We have Dr. Devalina Chakravarti, who is MD and CEO of Artemis Hospital. Dr. Garima Swane, who is co-founder Pristine Care. Dr. Shagun Sabrawal, who is South Asia Director, Women Lift Health. And to moderate this conversation, I would like to invite Mr. Shivam Tyagi, who is editorial lead of BW Healthcare World. Over to you, Shivam.
Thank you so much, Resham. Welcome, panelists.
Thank you so
I
much. Happy to
request
be here.
all the
Yeah,
panelists to switch on your
yeah,
cameras. Can we see you?
yeah. Well, welcome everyone in another session of Digital with BW, the road to gender equity through innovation and technology. Now, in this session, we will be discussing the healthcare sector of India and the women workforce that powers it. We will be discussing the economic participation of women in the healthcare sector, the gender gap in various segments or of various types in the sector, the challenges of women workforce, the challenges the women workforce faces, and how should India ensure that more women take the lead in the sector now more than ever? And last but not certainly the least, how can technology aid the progress to gender equity in the healthcare sector? Now, once again, thank you everyone for being here, the audience, our panelists. Now, let me say this first up. All my questions are open to the panel. Hence, you can share your views on any of the questions if you like. And now let me get into quickly into the thick of things by saying that, we've been in the previous panel as well, and in the, and in while I was doing the research for this panel as well, in the healthcare scheme of things, if I have to say, things are not looking at the in their pink of health when it comes to gender parity, gender gap, gender pay. For example, if you see the overall gender gap in India, it is declining, cite several UN reports. In economic participation and opportunity, we stand at 143rd position out of 146 countries. Now, first of all, I want to understand from all my panelists, how do you read this? In terms of health and survival, also, we're at the last. We're at the 146th country out of 146 countries. So when it comes to the healthcare sector, and when you look at the health and survival index, and you look at the economic participation and opportunity index, what trends are we seeing in the healthcare sector in terms of economic participation, labor participation force, and where do you see this health and survival index we coming at the last? So because we being a healthcare sector panel, we have to address that. Why don't we start with Dr. Devli now?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, like you mentioned, we have a long way to go. And there is, sorry. So, Shivam, like you mentioned, we have a long way to go, and there is no two things about it. And everybody, each one of us have to make their effort to better it today than what it was as of yesterday. So in the healthcare sector, as you're aware, in terms of workforce, typically healthcare sector does see the largest number of women workforce. So that could be the only one plus in the healthcare sector. Having said that, your reports across the globe show there is no what you call the pay parity in this sector. Here, I would like to differ a bit, and I'm speaking in the context of India. Most of our technical staff, whether they are doctors, nurses, paramedics, or other technical staff, most of the corporate private hospitals do not discriminate between the women and the men health force. The problem arises when you are looking at untrained, kind of people coming into the system, whether they are the general duty attendants and others, where a lot of exploitation can take place, and there's a lack of pay parity, where hospital like us, we intervene and make sure that there are no discrepancies between the women and men who come as a workforce to our place. But if we have to look at it on a more universal or a more global manner, it's not just about one unit or one hospital. It is a question of change of mindsets. If you remember, Shivam, even Indira Nooyi, being the chief of Pepsi in United States, said that the day she was made the chief of Pepsi, when she came home, her mom said that you also have to be the mother and the wife, and the caretaker when you come home. So mindsets have to change across all lines, So mindsets have to change for the men, and mindsets have to change for women if we have to see a shift in the gender equality. It's not just, your brothers and your husbands and your fathers and your sons have to stand by you, but the women have to actually get up and say, I can do it. and I will do it and not give up till I'm able to kind of, prove myself. So very, very importantly, in situations or in corporates like us, we try our best to give a lot of leeway to women workers so that they do not give up. And despite our best efforts, whether these are flexi timings, whether to have a grocery shop within the premises, whether to have a creche, the problem comes, they succumb under pressure and they give up. So the grit has to come from the woman when they say we are not going to give up. Second is in terms of the health index, where women's health becomes such a big issue because they are never stepping forward to look after themselves. So while we may blame the society and people, but the time has come for women to stand up for themselves. There are a large section of societies, both men and women, who are ready to give them the kind of support which is required, provided they are ready to take it, provided they are ready to take that step and say that, till I finish my task, I won't give up. So it is a combination of all of this, which will go a long term. Government is doing their bit. Government is now, there are 6 months maternity leave, which has been given to women. There is paternity leave, which kind of takes care of, the newborn. And there is a minimum basic pay, which comes for all types of third-party workers. So the government is doing its bit. Corporates like us are, of course, implementing all these directives and doing more to promote women at work. But the women themselves have to have the grit to say that we are going to do it, and they have to have that support of their family, irrespective of the support. If a woman makes up her mind, I can tell you there is no stopping to that.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Devleena. I want to come to Ms. Shah now. Ms. Shah, tell me, do you agree with these points? And what are the trends that you see in the diagnostic sector in terms of labor participation force? Are we seeing an equal number of women coming up and taking the jobs in the diagnostic sector and overall health sector? Where do you see this?
Sure, thank you. No, I agree with some of the points made by Dr. Devleena. I just want to add a couple of things. And I think, overall in healthcare, especially in India, I can't speak globally, we definitely do see enough women coming up into the workforce. I think the real challenge is that a lot of them come into junior levels. And then as they get more and more senior, the opportunity they have to get more senior, many of them drop out, either because that's not their aspiration or ambition, or because they're not able to balance things, like Dr. Devleena said. I think, honestly, if you ask me, I think if the question is framed that unequal pay parity is bad, I think we have to understand the source of it to understand whether it really is bad. And I'll just take a step back there for a minute. On the face of it, of course, it sounds terrible. Why should women get paid less than men? But I think if we see what happens on the ground, there are reasons for this. I'm not saying justifiable reasons, but there are reasons for it. I mean, I think the number one reason is that socially and from a conditioning perspective, even today, for all of us on the panel and probably for all women across India, our identity as women is often linked to, are you a good wife? Are you a good mother? Are you a good parent? Are you a good daughter-in-law? Those are very important parts of our identity, rightfully or wrongfully. And therefore, when we try to make decisions in our lives, we always never want to compromise those parts of our identity about being a bad mother or being a bad wife in order to make more money. And I think that's where really the challenge comes in. And especially for men, when their job is providing or earning the bread, it is about maximizing the economics. So usually in a room, it's not uncommon at all to see a guy switching jobs every few years because he's trying to maximize his economic earning capacity. And a woman being very comfortable in one location, even if she's not getting great compensation, because she values the comfort, she values the balance that she gets in that location. So I think at this point of time, man and women are trying to maximize different things. I'm speaking very broadly. I'm not speaking anecdotally about any one of us, but broadly. And I think, therefore, it is very natural that you're going to have not going to have equal pay parity, because even if the organizations are not enforcing different pay parity, but the women themselves are not standing up and saying, I demand more, or I deserve more, or I want more. They are valuing other things. And I think we should not always value everything only from a financial and economic lens. The world would not function if it was only on an economic lens. Who will be there to balance things in our lives? So I think while I'm all a proponent for making sure that the systems, the authorities, the corporates, everybody ensures the systems are in place not to be negatively biased against women on equal pay parity, I'm saying that this fundamental goal of equal pay parity may be slightly impractical, considering the conditioning that most women are brought up with at this point and most men are brought up with. We'll have to change our society completely, I think, for us to move to equal pay parity. And if that's what everybody wants, of course, we should do that. But we shouldn't judge that that's the only way to go.
Right. Moving to startups now. I want to come to Dr. Garima. Dr. Sani, tell me, while a lot of startups are spurring up these days in the healthcare sector, we have our close to, reports vary, but they say it's close to 5,000 to 7,000. Between that, the number is there. The health tech startups have come up. Are we seeing enough women leading these startups?
A lot of startups are coming, and not just in healthcare, all across. And the problem is not just in healthcare. A lot of women startups are like now led by the women itself, and the uniqueness of women is very different. So if I talk about a woman, there are a lot of things in a woman which can help a startup run very well. That is, they are more empathetic. They know how to balance the life and the work, right? So work-life balance is something they can maintain very well. Flexibility is something which we find in a woman more than men, right? Emotional intelligence you can talk about, wherein like women are more ahead in emotional intelligence as compared to male. If we talk about ego, a lot of industries have ego issues, and if we compare male versus female, egos are less in that in females. Women are more motivated. They want to solve the problem, so problem solving is definitely more there in female as compared to male. If I talk about problem solving, team working, that is these are the qualities which are required to run any organization or any startup. So these are the qualities which has not just led the women come in healthcare. Definitely these are some of the qualities which are very well required in healthcare, and that's the reason that we see, if we talk about male versus female ratio, we always say that healthcare is ahead, or the gap in healthcare is comparatively less. But overall, if we have to run any organization, any startup, whether it's healthcare, whether it's non-healthcare, these are some of the pointers which are needed, which are required to run an organization. So these are the qualities which brings a female forward. And that is the reason that we see nowadays that the startups are having more of female leadership involvement coming in. And that is what is there in Pristine also. So we have a lot of females, like we have 40% of people in Pristine who are females. And that's the reason, that is one of the qualities I think one should have in.
I think that's great that your organization is keeping pace with the changing environment and the changing environment of all organizations that should be. Let me come to Ms. Sabharwal now. Ms. Sabharwal, tell me, Dr. Garima has already outlined a few qualities that are better in women than men. What do you think are the imperatives of more women being in leadership positions in the healthcare sector and in the economy at large?
Yeah, so hi everyone. This is a very interesting discussion that we are having, and I think as Dr. Devleena started us off by saying that there is a uniqueness when we talk about the healthcare sector, which is that 75% of our workforce are women, and this is not just in India, this is global data. But when you start to look at leadership positions, then we find that the number really drops very steeply. So across the board, again, across all different countries, we find that only 25% of women occupy senior leadership positions in health. And if you start to look at C-suite positions, the number drops to just 5%. And if you then also look at women who are from low and middle income countries or developing countries, then the number is even smaller. So I definitely think that there is, like we talk about a triangle or a pyramid. In health, it is a female dominated profession. And yet we are seeing that women are not being able to rise up despite there being a lot of talent and potential. Now, why is women's leadership important? I think the first question, and especially when it comes to health, and when it comes to health, it's not just health service delivery, it's also health research, it's health policy, it's health decision making. And I think across all the board, we know now there's a lot of research and evidence that's building up, which is showing that having more women leaders makes a big difference. So first, women leaders across the board invest in policies that are more likely to be, pushing forward education, health, and social services. We have rigorous evidence to this from, again, multiple geographies. We also know that when you have women in leadership positions, they also try to, there's a tipping point phenomena where they also try, now again, I'm not saying that each and every woman does it, but by and large, they also try to uplift other women in other marginalized societies. So there is a case to be made about more inclusive leadership. Now, one of the things I think that often happens is that when the moment you start talking about women's leadership, there is almost like a backlash where it starts to become like the zero-sum game about men versus women. This is not the case. I think the whole point is that we obviously need men leaders, but we also need women leaders, because the more diversity that you have on the decision-making tables, the better the decisions will be, the more innovative and out-of-the-box thinking there will be. If all of us are very similar in our thought process, then we are not going to find a lot of innovation. And there is research around it, which just shows that the more diversity there is, we need that. And then the last point I will say is that I think whatever Garima just mentioned, I completely agree that I think we also need to start reimagining what leadership looks like. I think for a longest time, our models of leadership have emerged from this very patriarchal thinking from the war, from World War II, where a leader is supposed to be very top down, very decisive, just take the decisions, move on. Whereas right now, the kind of challenges the world is confronting, be it the pandemic like we had with COVID, or the climate change, or anything else where there's so much uncertainty, where the impacts are, I would just say that they impact people so differently. It's very important to move towards more inclusive and diverse leadership. And having women on the table, I think, is really a starting point that we must start to think about.
Right. Diversity on the decision making table there. Also, tell us, what are the challenges when it comes to India? You mentioned that when it comes to socio-economic countries, low and middle income countries, India is also the middle income and low and middle income country. Where do you think, the challenges lie when it comes to women not moving into leadership positions in India?
I think there are a host of multiple reasons, and I think everyone has touched upon it a little bit, all the speakers before me. But I would say someone who's like coming from the field of social research, who's a social scientist, I would say that you can categorize or bucket these in many different ways, right? The first most underlying one, and this is something that Amira referred to, are the norms that are surrounding women's participation, overall women's empowerment, right? And while I do agree to some extent that the gender parity shouldn't be the only index, I do feel that we need to move towards a state of the world where if there's an equal job description, if the equal amount of work is being done at the same level, we need to start to see that parity. And India has, according to the ILO estimates, India has a lot of pay gap, especially within the health workforce. But I would also say that other than that, I think we are all talking a lot about the challenges that women face and how women need to stand up for themselves. And I agree, which is why at Women Lift Health, we also really invest in leadership opportunities, leadership growth opportunities for women, which moving from middle level to senior level requires a very different mindset shift. You require a type of emotional intelligence. You require a way to be able to navigate the organizational politics. It's not just about your performance, right? And in many ways, because of our own internal social conditioning, we are not able to push back. But in addition to this, I think the onus should again not be put just on women. It cannot be, it's your problem, you fight for it. I think institutions, the entire ecosystem has to move towards a way where women are able to get the level playing field. We are not saying that you do affirmative action and do reservations, but are there opportunities that women can also, take on? And finally, I do also feel that in many ways, I think this entire onus that, again, women have to stand up for their rights, they have to say, sometimes it is very, very hard because there are structural barriers where they feel so constrained. Like even this idea of networking or relationship building. I was at a conference where someone, a very senior person from ICMR, their director general, actually said that it is a man's world. It has been designed in a way where everything is from the perspective of men to a lot of extent, and we have to mold ourselves into this world. Right now, after the pandemic, there is a lot of discussion around flexible working hours and all of that, which I think is a right step forward. So we need to, when we are designing initiatives, whether at an organization level or at a policy level, we need to think that women's perspective has to be put in place.
Right. Let me come back to Ms. Shah. Ms. Shah, Dr. Devleena in the starting said that, according to her, the pay gap in her organization and in India also, it isn't there. But, the report that Ms. Sabharwal was mentioning, the ILO report, the UN report, which says that globally 24% women get 24% less pay than men, and women in healthcare sector face higher pay gap than the other sector. This is when women account for almost 67% of the healthcare workforce globally. Do you think it is the same in India? Dr. Devleena clearly said that, in her organization and in her view, that it is not. What is your view on it?
Again, like I said, I don't think any corporates are necessarily purposely creating unequal pay, as a situation for men and women. I don't think this is something that is happening top down, at least not that I'm aware of. I think this is happening more bottom up, where because of circumstances, women come out of the workforce, they come back in, they lose a few years. Sometimes, like I said, they don't ask for increases. Sometimes there is bias against them. There are various reasons contributing. And I think, look, while we keep focusing on the output, which is the equal parity is not there, I think really the focus has to be on the input, on the questions, the structural questions of saying, are they getting the same education? Are they getting the same opportunities? Are they getting the support when required to? I mean, a man requires incredible support when he gets a promotion. He needs his wife to take care of the family or somebody to take care of the family so that he's able to go out there and do it. Is the woman getting the same support? So I think if we focus on the inputs rather than the output, we can move from few of us being as activists on the outside of the system to moving inside the system where we can actually start solving problems. Because the challenge of, on every Women's Day or on every this, I'm sure all of us have the same questions or similar situations where we're talking about it. And the question is, how does it begin to change? How does it really start to action a change that 5 years later, we're not saying the same things on a panel? And I think one thing is about what we do internally in our own companies. But I think the second thing is to really focus on the input structurally, to say what are the things that actually can go into to actually work for all these areas for women, to help them and to help all of us to really be able to progress towards the dreams we want. And again, not every woman wants, the dreams of having a very ambitious career. Many women are very happy with having a part-time role. And because they feel that the joy that they're getting from what they're doing, elsewhere is enough or is more than adequate. So I think, I think we have to look at it more holistically. But I do want to say that I think India has progressed a lot in terms of where we were 10, 20 years ago, as far as where women were, where we are now. The fact that we have, I remember 20 years ago, there were maybe the same five of us on every panel. The fact that there are so many new women professionals, entrepreneurs speaking, talking, I think itself shows how much things have progressed. I think the fact that the number of women in the workforce have increased is wonderful. What obviously we would all like to see is the parity gap being bridged. We would all like to see more women in senior positions. We would all like to see women actually leading companies, building companies. And I really hope that the next 10 years, this can be the story. And as each of us do it in our own clusters, and there are some organizations that focus on it more substantially as larger foundations, I'm pretty sure that we can get there and we can get to keep making progress And I think moving away from comparing ourselves to global situations or other country situations where cultures are very different, that may actually land up putting unreasonable targets on where we need to get to. But something which is more similar to our cultures, countries that have got the similar sort of situations, may be a better benchmark.
All right, all right.
No, I just wanted to get in hand a bit.
Yeah,
so
sure.
What I was trying to say was there is a parity for all the medical staff which is working. That means doctors, which I made very clear, nurses, paramedic. My male surgeon and my female surgeon gets the same pay. My male nurse and female nurse gets the same pay. Where there could be an issue in parity is the outsourced worker. They are typically the ones who are not educated. They come from far-flung areas to do small, outsourced, menial work. So that's where the exploitation is happening. But we, for instance, Artemis as an organization, make sure that we give a contract to a contractor where there is a pay parity for the same number of hours for the man and woman. But what it brings out is wherever there is education, where there is ambition, where is assertiveness, men and women will always be at par. The woman will ensure she is not coming any cheaper than a man, or at least will fight for it, But where there is education is lacking, exposure is lacking, this kind of exploitation will continue. My institution has 47% women and 53% of men. And at all technical employee level, there is parity for the same amount of work. Yes, if somebody is doing a half day, will get half job, but that is same for a man as well. But for the same number of hours and same quality of work, a man and a woman would get the same amount of pay, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, right. Dr. Garima, would you like to add something?
See, I am of the same opinion. Now the females are educated in our country, and those who are working in senior leadership positions or in an organization where the task which they are doing and the same task which the males are doing, I don't see any parity in the pay structure coming in. And they are good educated fighter with females who will go and fight if they will find that somewhere they are being cheated. So I don't see that coming over here. Like Dr. Devalina said, that doctors are paid equal. Even in pristine care, whether it's a male doctor, whether it's a female doctor, there is no difference in the fee structure to them, right? Whether it's a team working inside, male versus female, I don't see any disparity coming in there. So it depends on the type of a job a female or a male is doing. Suppose a female has a priority, that is the family, right? And she wants to work less because she wants to balance it, right? So she wants to give time to both the things. And that's the reason that she is working less. So she will be paid less. That's given, right? And she's okay adapting to it. So I don't think parity is there now, at least in urban sectors in the country. We can't comment on the rural areas, but the good educated female would fight for it, and I don't see any disparity coming over.
Right, right. Ms. Sabewal, let me come to the other aspect of the same in ILO report that states that the wages are often lower in economic sectors where women are predominant. Why do you think that is? And do you see it in India? I mean, in the healthcare sector, of course, we are seeing the panelists saying that it's culturally different here, and we are at par when it comes to gender pay. But overall, when it comes to the overall scheme of things, in professions, generally the pay is lower where women are predominant. Why do you think that is?
So I think, again, like I said, if you look at specific examples, I'm sure all the panelists are saying that they have not encountered any gender pay gap and things like that. These reports are global reports, which are very, very rigorous. This is by the International Labour Organization, which is a UN agency. So I would say that we need to also look at what are the trends telling us over time. And like I said, this is not just specific to India. This is happening across the world. We may not be, we may not come across this parity. We as leaders may not be doing this in our own organization, but that doesn't mean that it is not occurring overall, right? And again, like I said, I think the report definitely talks about the feminization of healthcare, and they also find that there are these trends which overall, if a particular profession is more female dominated, then the pay is generally on average lower than other. Now, what is the reason for this? I also don't know. And even the report wasn't able to pinpoint, because they did a lot of regression analysis. They looked at a lot of data and did a lot of rigorous analysis. And they find there's a lot of unexplained variation. So even if you look at, like I was saying, if you look at the same amount of education qualifications, everything else being equal, there is still the pay gap. So you have a man and a woman who are exactly the same education, the same experience, working the same job description, and yet you are finding this pay disparity. Now, like Garima said, it may not be happening in the urban centers, it may be happening rural. The health workforce is definitely vast. There's a lot of diversity, right? So I think that, again, this could be something to do with the norms. I think in general, this is the whole thing when we are thinking about gender equality, that the norms are such overall that there is a preference that ends up happening when it comes to male workers, male leaders as compared to women. So that is one thing that could be explaining that. But it's a much larger thing. It's much more structural than what we discussed.
Right. Dr. Devleena, let me come back to you and understand, we've been talking about a lot of, reforms on the women by the women themselves. But what is your advice to the government or policymakers and industry leaders on how to grow women in the healthcare workforce and the senior leadership positions?
So see, in the healthcare, like Garima also mentioned, women have certain innate quality, which I think in today's world makes them natural leaders. They can multitask, they can think beyond their their life at work. They have the best work-life balance. So it creates great team spirits and leadership spirits in an organization. If once you are able to take over the first hurdle where you are accepted as a leader, things flow in pretty easily. And I can tell you from my own example and multiple other examples where there are women leaders in healthcare. Importantly, what government should and try and do, and you see this already happening in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, in healthcare, people like us, doctors, like so many of us in this panel today, we are tuned to do only one thing, that is look after the patient, treat him well, and send him back home happily, right? Now, our horizons are less, and it becomes lesser when we are given the further burden of looking after home, earth, and family. Right from the beginning and from medical schools, professionals, both men and women, if they are given certain management exposure, like in All India Institute, now it is becoming mandatory for all medical students to have a course in MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, IIT, and ISB. So that helps them to do parallel thinking. They can look at issues beyond patients. And women especially, who have this innate strength of a natural leadership skill, because they are managing so many things at the same time. They are managing their home, their children, their teams at work. So they are already a team leader, so to say. If they are given certain exposure very, very early in management, they will be able to, as management and finance, this is something which we see a lot of women leaders lacking, because they typically do not go in for a finance course or an MBA course. At the very inception of whatever, it could even be a nursing. In a nursing, you want to make a nursing female leader, give them certain training in management. And I think government is waking up to that. And I'll tell you, in a curriculum where these things get incorporated, the woman will always have a better pick than man, because it's their sixth sense, their innate strength, their emotional quality, and the overall personality, which will help them imbibe this better than any male colleague and move forward to become a stronger leader in the future.
That's great to hear.
Of course, and apart from that, reservation for women, X amount of seats, both in state quota, in parliament, so many women to be employed in every state, which is already there and which we are all abiding to. But that again gets you to the bottom of the pyramid. If you want to really reach the top, you have to be motivated to get interest in what a leader needs to run an institution.
Right, right. I think the parliament and the government has it. I mean, they are doing better than the private sector when it comes to women, gender parity. We are actually quite ahead. We are at the 48th position, if I'm not wrong, when it comes to gender gap in political empowerment. So, I want to come to Ms. Shah now. Ms. Shah, would you like to add something to this?
No, I think, look, I think, as we continue to make progress, I think the questions we need to be asking the women is, are they equally enjoying their jobs? Are they feeling that support? Are they feeling the level of opportunity? And I'm, while obviously I'm very cautiously optimistic around with the direction we are moving in, I think that level of, if I just look at the last, many years, I think we are definitely on a progressive track. So I think we have to keep fighting for equal opportunity, and honestly, pay to a large extent, will not automatically come with equal opportunity, as we have also seen. So we have to fight not only for equal opportunity, we have to also fight for equal pay. We also have to keep having the conversations around support, around really what direction we want to go in. But also we have to somewhere not play completely to the terms of the man's world, which has been designed. And somewhere not lose focus of the things that some of us or some of women may want to do differently. And I'm just keeping on bringing this point because sometimes I feel like in these conversations, we are all trying so hard to not be treated any differently than men in terms of any equality, which is rightfully ours. Yet sometimes maybe the question gets lost around what is it that we really want? What really makes us happy? And I think to me, that's really the most fundamental question that comes out of all of it. And yes, ideal situation would be we have all the equal opportunity, we have all the equal pay, we have all the equal support, and then we can choose what makes us happy and then decide from there. But it is not an ideal world. And the question is really, how do we continue to navigate our journeys in this less than ideal world while being idealistic and asking for all of these things, but also being practical and saying what is it that we need to do within ourselves to continue to be successful in our own journeys, right? And part of that is not, like I said, not just demanding, which is part of also what we need to do, but part of it is also about us constantly developing our own skills and constantly finding our own introspection about where we want to go. And I really hope we can see a world where every woman, whatever her dream is, whether it's financial independence, whether it's emotional independence, whether it's whatever it is, really has the opportunity to pick and choose what she wants to do and is not forced in any one direction. I also meet a lot of women today who feel forced to be financially independent when they don't want to be. For various reasons, right? So it's a very conflicted world today, and I really hope we can all just find our own future.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Women do feel the need to be independent. We have this, in our social networks these days that is going around that women need to be independent even when they're not, they don't want to be, certainly. Let me come to my last question, and I want to address it to Dr. Garima first. Dr. Garima, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the theme of this year's Women's Day. How can technology bridge the gap of inequity for women in healthcare sector? What do you think?
So first of all, let me divide women in healthcare in two parts. One as a patient and the women in healthcare as at work. Okay, so when we talk about women as patient, I think post-COVID technology has brought a lot of changes. Coming up of teleconsultation was the big booster in it. First of all, many females were not aware about their diseases, or there were a lot of education which was required. So technology has brought in that kind of awareness about their diseases and stuff. Second, teleconsult, as I was talking about, teleconsult has brought a lot of patients to come and meet the doctor. So that, especially in rural areas, if I talk about, that has brought a lot of change. Third thing is treatment. Now, many females are shy persons, right? So they are very shy about getting themselves treated. They are very shy. They are very frightened when they have to go to the doctor. So technology has brought, like the era of internet has brought a lot of awareness about the treatment options. Okay, they can go on net, search for a doctor, search for the disease, find their solutions. They can take one opinion, second opinion, third opinion, and then accordingly try find out like what is the best solution. So I think for the patient side, that is something which has brought a lot of change related to their health and stuff, right? If I talk about females at work, right, technology, as right now we are talking about women at work, right? Especially technology has brought in a lot of safety. There's so many devices which has come in, which helps them, because that is something like females hesitate to go out because they are concerned about their safety. So a lot of safety devices is coming. Then we talk about their work life balance. A lot of technologies, like for me, if I can say, I have a small daughter at home, how I am working because of the technology. I have a monitor placed in house with which I can see. So a lot of things have come up wherein a female can manage work and home together with the help of technology. Now the next thing is finding job. Now we know the awareness is becoming so common, like females also wants to work. So going on internet, finding the job is something which has become easier for females. So internet has brought in a lot of things, right? And more of the devices has brought in a lot of things. I think technology has played a lot of stuff.
Right, right. Thank you. We are running a tad bit late here, so I think the noticeable part for me was when I think Ms. Shah said that not play by the terms of the man in the man's world. Thank you, all of my panelists and the viewers for joining us. As I said, we're ending late. I wanted to take others' views also on that same question, but apparently the time is not allowing me. Thank you so much, panelists, for being here, for coming for these conversations, which are very important. And the changes that you've all mentioned, let's hope they come up, if not next year, in the next decade maybe, but they do come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivam.
Thank you, Shivam, for this insightful conversation with the women leaders from the healthcare sector. We are hopeful to see more women participation in the leadership roles as well as across the sector. Of course, this is just not women versus men. We must appreciate and laud our male allyship, male mentor. A huge shout out to men out there as well. Our next panel is all set. Please help me welcome Ms. Nanki Lakhwinder Singh, who is CEO and Director, ProTribe. Ms. Nidhi Mohan Kamal, who is renowned nutritionist, strength coach, and yoga instructor. We have with us Dr. Ritu Garg Mittal, who is Chief Growth and Innovation Officer of Fortis Healthcare. And these wonderful ladies will have a discussion on working women's well-being in a connected world. They will also give you tips on how women can cope with stress at the workplace, the most important topic, I would say. And to moderate this interesting conversation, we have with us Mr. Hardin Narola, who is CEO of BW Healthcare World and BW Wellbeing World. Over to you, Mr. Narola.
Thank you so much, Resham. Welcome, panelists. Welcome, Dr. Ritu Garg, Nidhi Mohanji, as well as Nanki. Nanki, can we switch on the camera so that we can have a look at you? Oh, awesome. So we have Nanki joining us from her car. Welcome, all of you. I'm not going to waste too much of time. I'm going to deep dive into questions straight away because we are running a little late. And the topic that we have is not only very important, but very interesting. And it is imperative that we touch upon the issues that women face when it comes to stress. Because, I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of healthcare professionals because of my job. And I realized that half the problems that we face, and I'm talking about I'm including men in this, is the stress. And, talking about stress, we're living at a time when we are all very connected. We are living in a connected world where we have this piece of technology, a reality which keeps us connected and remain at work even when we go back home. My first question to you, Dr. Ritu Garg, is that, sorry, I'm going to begin with Nanki. Nanki, we have women who are taking up a responsible position at work. They also take up the lead responsible position while they are at home. And your mobile ensures that you are accessible even when you go back home. Is this connectedness increasing the stress levels, or is it actually reducing the stress levels for a working woman?
So I want to actually answer your question in parts. On one level, definitely it is increasing stress levels because now you're thinking about it all the time. Or everybody expects an answer immediately. Is connectivity helpful? For sure. I mean, the previous panel spoke ample about connectivity and I don't want to delve into it. But question is, how do you manage this? How do you balance this? I'll just give you 3 things that I do in my personal life on how I've learned to manage work, home, kids, family, husband, and all of that together. And they all require your time. And all of us only have 24 hours in a day. And actually 12 hours out of that is productive. The rest of it is really not even productive. 10 to 12 hours would be productive. I think the important thing to do is to map your mind. You have to map your mind to each aspect that you're looking at. You're looking at work, you're looking at home, you're looking at kids, you're looking at the rest of your family and your husband. And all of this comes from a very natural instinct of a woman where she's always been a preserver and a creator, and the man has been, the provider. Times evolved, women now take on more responsibility, plus their own natural instinct still stays with them. So however much we try, the balance will never change as far as the natural instinct is concerned. A man will always be the provider, a woman will always be the creator and the preserver, but yet you take on more responsibilities. And this is where we are in this confused world today, which is fine, but you got to learn to live with it. So going back to a tactic on how to deal with this is map your mind. What is it that you want to do and how much time of your day do you want to dedicate to work? Have a cutoff. If it's 6 hours, it is 6 hours. It is 7 hours, 7 hours. You want to spend that hour with your kid? And I have 2 kids myself, right? Spend that hour, put everything else away. You need to clean the kitchen cabinet, do it, put it on your calendar, it needs to get done, right? You need to spend that half an hour with your parents every 3-4 days, you got to do it. So milestoning and brain mapping comes really important here, right? Prioritizing is top notch, and organize your day, organize your week, organize your quarter. Understand what, as an entrepreneur who is actually also leading a business, for me, it's very important to figure out in the next 3 months, where is my business going to be? Is my kid going to be doing well at math? How am I going to teach her math? Is my son having enough time to go out and play and socialize with other friends because he's young, because he's just about a post-COVID baby, right? How am I going to do this? You have to prioritize time. That's what it is. And the most important thing, Harbinder, I would say, and I think the other 2 ladies would agree with me, is take out time for yourself. Do what makes you happy. If it's a salon once a week, go. If it's dressing well, go ahead, do it. It's socializing, go ahead, do it. If it's fitness, go ahead, do it. Take out time, money, and energy for yourself. And I think you'll be able to find that balance to whatever extent you can. And I can also say one more thing, that it's only these 15, 20 years of your life that you are pulled in every direction. The before and after is easy. So we have to try and maintain that balance. That's what I would say.
So Nanki, what I hear you say is that you need to prioritize your life, your activities which bring balance to your life. Dr. Ritu, I mean, you work in an environment which is a hospital environment, and a hospital environment is not the most pleasant environment to be in because you're surrounded by a lot of negativity, sadness, pain. Now, in this environment, the working women are expected to have empathy more than anyone else, right? But they are also human beings and they face the same pressures like working women do in other work environments. What is it that you do for yourself and what is it that you do for your employees at the hospital, women employees, so that they are relatively stress-free and more relaxed when they go back home?
Yeah, thank you, Arvind. It's a great question. It depends on how you look at it. So while yes, there is sadness and hospital is not the place people come on their own. Having said that, it is also a place where there are multiple stories of resilience and kindness. And I think that keeps many of our women colleagues going. You've seen some very tough COVID times. We see families standing by each other, and also some of the patients, who get very connected to the employees that they work with or they heal with. And sometimes, that vibes and that kindness gives a lot of meaning to their life. It gives meaning to what they do every single day. And I think that is the basic strength that hospitals have, which helps them to carry on. Second is, since we have our women, I think it's very important for all of us to stand into each other and be extremely understanding of what we're all going through. We all have phases in life where home will need us more. There will be days where home will need us more. And then there will be days where somebody else is needed more at home, and that's when we have to fill in. We have to fill in for that person. And that's extremely important. It's extremely important for all of us to form a chain of security, a chain on which women can just fall back when they need strength. And we all give strength to each other. I was leading at the now, and even in the at the bank level. Now there are many women, and I see a lot of them share ideas how they go about over coffee, over walk, over dogs, and that's so much in believing that strength. And then, of course, we had also sessions. So we have a very strong medical program across the company, which do regular sessions in which available just to talk about positivity, optimism, and guide people. In case anybody wants to share anything, in case there is a need there. So yes, it is a hard place to be, but it is also a very important place, and it can go both ways depending on how we wish to see it.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Ritu. Niti, let me come to you. Let me move towards young women. The young professionals of today seem to be focusing on self-love. These are all the things that we are hearing motivational speakers speak of. And there's an increasing productivity by watching a lot of motivational videos. But when it comes to real pressures of real life, there seem to be a breakdown. The young women of today are unable to take the pressures where they need to create a balance between their work, their passion, their family life, their friend circles. Why do you think the younger women of today are breaking down when they are put under pressures which are very, very real?
I think I'll have to break it down to two things. One is that let's just first talk about, I'm not going to say men or women, but just both the genders getting exposed to all this content, which is around productivity and all this motivation, and also a lot about self-care and self-awareness. So a generation before the Gen Z, the millennials, they kind of had a mix of both. We had the baby boomers were completely disciplined. Their life was just do as you're told, don't stray here and there. This is the path you walk. You get married at this age. This is the job you do. So it was very structured, very disciplined. As some of the panelists in the previous panel also said, that it was almost like a top-down approach, a very autocratic approach, even to raising kids and just living life as such, right? So everything was just set. And then came the millennials who had some bit of feeling coming in. There was a bit of rebellion coming in. I would want to choose a different path. I wanted to choose my path. So that happened. And then next comes the Gen Z, which is very aware. If you talk about emotional health and feeling, I feel Gen Z is very aware of what's going on with them. They're very aware of their self-care practices, all of that. But somewhere what's lacking is a balance between that self-care, self-awareness, emotional health, and that balance of discipline.
So I feel that that's one reason why I feel that the generation was just very young, newly joining the workforce, be it men or women, are struggling because somewhere they've become emotionally very aware of everything. They've become also they're exposed to a lot of content, but there is a lack of that discipline that was there in the older generations, and that's a struggle. And I feel that's a struggle for both men and women. And now coming over to, you know, why women are a bit more stressed. If you look at the way women have developed over years, if women actually got the power to what it is right now only when contraceptives came in. That was the first level of control women got, right? If I can control if I can control my birth of my child, then I can control a lot of things. So I think it's beyond 1960s that this real change started to come in. If you look at how previous generations used to choose their life partners, it was like if they earn, they don't beat you, it's good. But now the criteria have changed. So for women, there are still not many role models to look up to. They are a bit confused in terms of how do I manage. Like Nanki rightly said, that women need to prioritize. Our life almost becomes like this planner and a Gantt chart where we have to have timelines and all that. And although some women like her, who are extremely disciplined, who are extremely conscious about their priorities, can do that. But again, this is again an ability humanly. I'm not saying men and women. Humanly, there are some humans who kind of struggle with structures. So there you'll feel that there's nothing to look forward to, and there are pressures which are way extra from what probably my mother handled or probably a senior person in my family handled. So there's this. That's why the younger generation is kind of struggling, because it seems like for us it's just the first time we are getting to handle house responsibilities, also outside responsibilities. Also, I'm treated as an equal outside, so I'm expected to show up at work with the same kind of enthusiasm, take up the same responsibilities while I'm also a child. I'm also responsible for childcare. I'm also responsible for my household. So that's something that women are struggling with, because I feel that it's also first generation for us to handle too much too soon. So I feel that this is a transition, and I feel that definitely there'll be an evolution, and the next generation will definitely have some more women to look up to.
I agree with you, Nidhi. I also feel that, while when we are looking at these younger women, they are also very, very independent. They're staying alone. They're living their life on their own. And, I feel that while they're enjoying their freedom, they are also crippled because of the lack of support that the older generation also, kind of took it for granted. Nanki, if you're there, if you can just put the camera on, I have a question for you. Nanki, you deal with senior care, and so you're dealing with women who are little senior in their age. And this question is specific to you, that when you're looking at these women who otherwise may not have had the empowered lifestyle when they were growing up, what challenges do you think they are facing now at their later part of their life? For example, are they aware of how to manage their banks, how to manage the support activities when they may not be having the energy levels and may not even have their partner with them now?
Yes, so I'll tell you what happened. That's what Nidhi said. Nidhi said so well. We actually right now, we are all 40 plus women who are straddling two kinds of generations. One is this younger lot, over enthusiastic about women live and don't even know where they're headed. They're going to just go crash into something because they just, I think, overdo it about, self-empowerment, what you want to do and the way you want to, family doesn't matter. Kids are not just my responsibility. I think that's like an overkill of it, right? And they don't have the discipline, like you rightly said, to manage everything. The other side is, you have these seniors who have always done for the family and who have never taken decisions for themselves in terms of their healthcare, in terms of their finances. They've always been taken for them. And I'm not saying they were bad decisions or good. Most of them are very happy, right? But there is this part of them that they never did it because they were always on the other end. So what you have to do is you have to live it out. This is a phase. you have to live it out, right? I think if you look at a 20-year-old today, 20 or 30-year-old today will not be the same as, a 10 to 20-year-old later, 10, 12, 10, 15 years from now. That child, when they grow up, they will realize that the balance is required. Only because not just the ecosystem so requires, they will see their own mothers who are 40 odd years old now, seeing that they maintain the balance, right? The same way, and I keep picking up my kids on this because I have a 10-year-old. By the time she becomes 20, she will see her mother did it properly, right? Hopefully, fingers crossed. If I felt that my mom didn't do it properly, I'd be an extra liberated woman who, felt like I have to go all gongo and fight for women's rights and this and that. Women's rights is important. Equality is very important. But everything has to be done with a sense of discipline and a sense of balance. In the senior care space, we come across a lot of situations where women do not want to take a decision on their health at all because they feel everything is fine. They have never gone to the doctor. They've never gone to the doctor because they feel that, it's going to be fine. I don't need to see the doctor. I don't need to see the gynecologist. I'm going to be okay. I cannot get cancer. I cannot get anything. I don't need to get my regular checks done. But that is not how it is. Some amount of empowerment is important there. And it's us women, us daughters and daughter-in-laws and sisters who can actually make that person realize that, go out there, look after yourself. A very interesting case happened. A very well-liberated, well-to-do woman called senior lady called me and said, I have a neurological disorder and I can walk around, I can go with my grandkids, I can do a lot of stuff, but I need help, continuous help to be able to walk around. I said, you know what, that's a great idea. You want to stay independent and you're already reaching out yourself that you need help. So I gave her the price points and I said, this is what we can do for you. She said, okay, I'll speak with my husband and my son. You are living in an upmarket area in Gurgaon and you are not able to take a decision where you need the help and it'll help you feel better, but you still don't have the financial independence. So it's not all black and white, lots of grays in there, Arvinder. And I see a lot of that in the senior care space. And then I also see spouses taking very good care of their wives, very good care of their wives. But once the spouses pass on, then the dependence on the children is a lot. So I think that also needs to change.
Absolutely. So what I hear, Nanki, is that, when I'm talking about empowerment, during their growing age, in their productive years, they have not yet developed the power to make their choices and decisions on their own. They've always needed validation from someone else. Is that what I hear? Is that correct?
Yeah, yes. The senior generation, yes. Absolutely. Because their focus was different in life. Their focus was about keeping things together. So validation does become important.
Dr. Ritu, let me come to you. I've spoken with a lot of women leaders in the healthcare space. And what has come out is that there are challenges that they face as women who are going out and transacting business with the government, with people that they want to sell to, etc. What, in your opinion, your own experience, are some of the challenges that you think that the women are facing today in the corporate world? They may be at the leadership position, but when they're doing business, they face certain problems which usually you feel that the men do not face.
Yeah, so the challenges in healthcare are no different from the rest of the world. They are pretty much the same. When you step out, as in healthcare person, we've got more than 50-60% of women workforce, but the moment you come to a leadership, it's as this and any other corporate, right? I mean, it keeps slowing down, it's like a behind. So by the time it comes to the board, it's probably mandatory 10-20%, then it would be 25 and so on, right? And some of it obviously is to do with the general bias, against of what a person can do when it comes to healthcare policy can be extremely demanding in terms of night shifts and being available on the floor. A lot of women, which includes, and it includes for any other profession which has 24/7, is the security that women feel. Is it a safe ecosystem? So much of the problem that women face is also to do with the ecosystem. So whenever I have to travel, for example, for me, whenever I'm choosing a hotel, the safety becomes, utmost important. Are there enough safe places to go to? Are the hotels safe? Is the transport safe? You're far more worried about that. And maybe somehow there are more intangible or a little tangible aspects, but they keep
Dr. Ritu, I think
accommodating, and they form a little bit of
Dr. Ritu, I think you're facing a lag, with your connection. Nidhi, let me come to you in the meantime while Dr. Ritu comes back.
Okay, yeah, probably there was some issue with the transmission, I guess. Is it all right now?
Yeah, your voice is echoing too much, so maybe you're using a mic or something which is creating a problem. You might want to correct that. Yeah. In the meantime, Nidhi, let me take the next question with you.
Sure.
When we talk about the space where the women were unexpected, typically, and they have made their foray in that. What I understand, and from my whatever limited knowledge, I've seen that women are there when it comes to unskilled space where you have a lot of women in the labor force, construction activity because of economic reasons. And then we have seen a lot of women coming into areas which were otherwise unexpected, where there was an education which was a barrier. We have seen, we had a panelist before this, Devjani Singh Gupta, who's the CEO of Shell. So women have entered the energy sector. We've had Kiran Bedi lead the police for us. But there are a lot of these skill areas where they have not entered for some reason. For example, you don't find too many truck drivers, you do not find car mechanics, you don't find women plumbers. What do you think needs to happen so that we have an equitable work environment for beyond gender bias?
Okay, I'll share my own first personal experience about it. So I graduated as an engineer. The first job that I did was on the shop floor. The first question everybody used to ask me in an interview was not about my skill level as an engineer or how much I knew about it. It always used to be, would you be able to work on a shop floor? And I would be taken by surprise that, why is this question even there? I have proved myself that I'm academically sound in a group of 120 people already. Why do I have to again prove that I can work on a shop floor? I mean, I knew what I was getting into. So I think the whole problem stems from the idea when we put a gender to a skill, and you would see that I don't know where it came from, but mostly when you see any of the quantitative skills, it's always assumed that women will not be good at. When it comes to language skills, it's assumed women will be good at. So if you look at any skill per se, whether it is, these tasks jobs like a plumber or a driver, even driver, the insane amount of jokes on women drivers online. Now we pass it off and we laugh it off like, oh, this is just humor, this is fun. But there's a subconscious message that a woman can't be a driver. So, I find that's a bit, it's a lot to do with how we label things. It's only yesterday that I had an event with BMW. They wanted me to sit and try out a car, and I'm a car lover. I sat in a car. It was a petrol souped up engine. Somebody sat on the back and he started explaining the panel, the computer, the music system with me. I was like, belt up. I'm gonna really speed up the car and test it out. And he's taken by surprise because if he was giving a test ride to a male, I'm sure he would assume that he's going to take the car rough, he's going to drive the car rough. So I felt like there's a bias even before my skill is out there. And I would say that's again, it's equal for men as well. So if I have a male nutritionist, he gets these eyebrow raises that oh, I thought that was a woman's job. So I think we need to get rid of these labels that we have on any kind of skill. There's research has proven that cognitive skills are same when it's a man or a woman. motor skills are same, whether it's a man or a woman. It's only about practice and developing that skill that we can be there. So the moment we stop labeling skills as a male or masculine or a feminine, then I think things would change. We've seen Uber drivers come in. I was so surprised that the other day I asked for a plumber to come and fix something in my house, and I had a female plumber. And I was super excited to see that. So I think change is coming. Today I was shooting something, and for the first time I worked with a female photographer. And I was thrilled to know that her knowledge, her passion for doing it was more than probably would have ever been. So I don't think there's anything that somebody from the outside would do unless I'm making that change myself. So I think each one of us as individuals need to stop labeling skills as a male and a female, and then you'll see the change coming in.
I agree with you, Nidhi. Dr. Ritu, my question to you, I hope your voice is not.
Yeah,
the
is
mic
it
is
okay
fine.
now?
Yeah, this is much better. This is much better.
So sorry.
This is
Yeah.
much better, Dr. Ritu.
Can we just quickly do this?
Yeah.
We
So,
are unfortunately running behind time.
Yeah. So, Dr. Ritu, do you think that there's a role that the government should be playing to ensure women employees in any organization must be ensured a stress-free environment, something which is mandated by the policymakers of our country?
Yeah, absolutely. I think government has a huge role to play. I think there are also some of the government policies that are already in force, but whether they are being implemented in spirit is a big question. Now, let me give you an example, right? So, crèche, for example, for a woman, much of the fear of how the kids are doing at home, it takes up large portion of their worry when they work. So there is a provision that there should be childcare facilities in most of the large setups. Having said that, many of the organizations just do it as a tick box for an inspection rather than doing it in the spirit. And I think that is a very, very important piece which needs a better implementation. So some of these policies which exist needs to be implemented in spirit, and their government's role is pivotal. Second is, I think it's very important to have counselors. Very important to have, counselors that women can reach out to. In fact, men also. I think it's across the spectrum all the time. And we have seen this pandemic of the stress-related issues, especially with also. And I think if there are some policy frameworks which mandates that would be extremely beneficial to all as well.
So, Nidhi, it'll be unfair to end this conversation while you are there on the panel. And we're talking of stress. Give me a 5-minute regime for every working woman, whether it's a mix of your fitness or nutrition, the 5-minute regime that will help any woman de-stress on each working day.
This is besides taking a good diet and drinking enough water. I think everyone needs to understand that human body was made to move. So we as women, as caregivers, have too many priorities, and it's difficult for us to take out that 1.5 hour probably to work out. If you can do that, great. If you can't, just commit to moving your body as much as you can, whether it's taking a walk after meals, whether it's stretching on your own work desk. And I think to manage stress, one thing one must do every day, at least in the morning and before you go to bed, is do the right kind of breath work that is required. So starting your morning with some pranayam to kind of get your body to go going and get your metabolism up, and winding up the day with some cooling, calming pranayam to, kind of soothe your nerves down so that you get the enough rest that you need, and, you can recharge for the next day.
Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to come
Ms.
to an end. Thank you, Dr. Ritu, Nidhi, and Nanki for your time. Thank you, Resham, for bearing.
Thank you, Ms. Kamal. Thank you, Mr. Narula, for this interesting discussion. Our next set of panelists are waiting for next wonderful discussion. Let me please invite Dr. Aruna Karla, who is director obstetrics and gynecology of C.K. Birla Hospital. Dr. Mukta Kapila, who is director and HOD invasive gynae of Fortis Memorial Research Institute. We have with us Dr. Sonia Malik, who is Director and HOD of Nova Southern Fertility and IVF. We have Dr. Shutish Murdia, who is co-founder and CEO of Indira IVF. And for this moderation, for this panel discussion, we have with us Ms. Jyotsna Sharma, who is Senior Associate Editor of BW Business World. Over to you, Ms. Sharma.
Thank you, Resham. Thank you so much. Welcome, doctors. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Throughout the day, we have spoken about our focus on digital. We've spoken about technology being used to empower women. We've spoken about where India is at currently in terms of gender equality. We've spoken about policy change. We have spoken about mentorship. However, one of the most important aspects when it comes to empowering women is to give her that awareness and to give her that ability to make a decision about her reproductive health and her sexual health. And that is what this panel is about today. And that is what we're going to discuss. Right. So let's begin. I'll begin with you, Dr. Murdia. Thank you for joining us today. Give us your views on the ART and the surrogacy bill.
Thank you, Business World. And I think I'm the odd one out. It's a women's panel, especially on the Women's Day. But I think a lot to do because being in the fertility segment, I think this is a very good milestone that India as a country has achieved, that we have the ART bill now, because that will help standardization of practices, equal reporting platform. And I think most importantly for the patients, they'll gain much more trust and confidence in going through the procedures. Otherwise, people would have differing views, and then, lots of other news keep popping here and there, and then people don't have that trust. Because all said and done, India is and would be the capital of fertility treatment across the world, having a 12 to 15% infertility rate and having the largest population of reproductive age group women. I think nearly 27 to 30 million couples or infertile females are suffering from this disorder. And I think as of now, only 10% go for fertility treatment, only 1% go for IVF treatment. So I think with this ART bill coming into place, a lot of standardization happening, a lot of awareness would go in the coming months or years. I think it'll be a big boost to the overall sector, and patients would feel much more nicer and comfortable going through the entire treatment cycle.
What is the key point of the bills that really stands out for you?
I think there have been clear specifications on what are the infrastructure requirements, what are the manpower requirements, who should register as a clinic, what are the qualifications that you require for a gynecologist, what are the qualifications for the embryologist, what are the rights of the couples going through the treatment, how do we take an informed consent from the treatment, from the couple, and then broadly separating the donor ecosystem from the patients, and have the ART bank concept come in, which would screen and do the collection of gametes in some cases for sperms and oocytes going to the clinic. I think the entire regulation around how a clinic should operate, what should be the protocols, and how should you put the data in your clinic into various forms and segments. I think that is the bigger objective of the entire ART Act. Although there are some teething issues, which every act, when it comes into place, there are some teething issues. A lot of clarifications have come in. We expect few more clarification and amendments that might come in future, which would make the entire act very conducive to the doctors at the ground level. So operationally, they don't face any problems. And obviously, it has to be in the larger benefit of the patients as a whole community.
Absolutely. So I can see Dr. Sonia Malik has joined us. Welcome, Dr. Malik. Dr. Malik, we've just begun with the first question. We're just getting views on the ART and the surrogacy bill. So Dr. Murdia has just spoken about it. I'd like to get your views on it. What is the key aspect that stands out? How can it, be strengthened, and how can it be made better? Your views.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me over today for this webinar. See, essentially, I think he would have explained much more because he's at the helm of affairs. But by and large, for a doctor like me who is practicing ART, we have been looking forward to some kind of a regulation for a very long time. All these years, we had been practicing using the ICMR guidelines, but that was not enough. What had happened is that first of all, IVF became a market. We now, unfortunately, we see it mushrooming everywhere. We have all kinds of clinics. So therefore, I think the government saw the need for regulating the whole space of ART. I think that is very much required because, as he would have said, now with the new regulations, there'll be specific kind of doctors or specific really super specialists in the field who would be allowed to practice and the others would not. So that is going to weed out a lot of unnecessary elements that have cropped up. And, we do hope that in the coming months or in the years to come, we will have a very nicely well-regulated ART space. Because as you know, we have in the field of ART done quite well as far as the world scenario, global scenario is concerned. Our results are matching with them, in fact, and we are much cheaper than the rest of the world. So when we look at the possibility of, overseas patients coming in and all that thing that mushroomed in, it was a kind of a boom for us. That still needs to be created and that still needs to be maintained, I would say, but in the right way. People have become very skeptical about India when they come here for anything related to ART. That is what has to be removed from the minds, first us ourselves, and then the world at large. So that's how I look at it. I think it's a very good move, very, very good move.
Dr. Kapila, I'd like to get you in on this. Would you like to add to that?
No, it's a fantastic thing which has happened. India, what happens is anything you start, people do it so fearlessly. There was so much malpractice happening and, people are handling the embryos. Actually, what you see, embryo is somebody's baby, right? Selling the embryo, selling the ovas, what all was happening. So it is a very good move. And I think, like Dr. Sonia Malik said, even the foreigners can come and avail of this facility now. It is very expensive abroad. Though we think it is expensive in India, but abroad it's very expensive and people can come and get it done. And it will be all regulated and genuine people who are coming for infertility ART treatment, they will have faith in us. There's so many patients who come to us, doctor, we are going to that place. Do you think our gametes will not be mishandled and it will come to us only, not go to anybody else? So I think it's a very, very good move. Like Dr. Sonia Malik said, we have just started and we are going to. So fantastic. India is really progressive in this.
Dr. Kalra, I'd get you in on this as well. And also I want to ask you about the maternal mortality rate. Has that come down? What do you see?
Okay, so this is not in tandem with the question which you asked, but it's a separate question, I believe, maternal mortality.
So I'll get your views on the first one first, and then come to start with you.
Yeah. Yes, Jyotsna, so as Dr. Sonia and Dr. Kapila also said the same thing, because as India is going to be a biggest international market for, or I would say a place where neighboring countries look up to for better treatment, and not even like previously we used to think that only developing countries like Nepal or Bangladesh or those patients come to us or from Saudi. But nowadays, Dr. Mukta would actually agree with me and Dr. Sonia also that people from Canada, from New Zealand, from UK or US, because there's so much, they do not have direct access to doctors. Okay, so for as fibroids and endometriosis surgeries, they get dates very, very late. So same way, infertility also, they do not have much access to doctors, or they get the treatment access is really poor, and they come to India. So we have this international tourism
for medicine, and this law would give them also confidence and comfort that we are not doing something illegal. It is legalized, and it is only good doctors would be doing, or only super specialists would be doing this, and everything would be like, as Dr. Mukta said, our embryos would not be mishandled or used for something else. So, and another question which you asked about was maternal mortality.
Yeah.
So, Jyotsna, I would tell you, and it is surprising for many of my patients as well when we talk about government hospital or other hospitals. See, maternal mortality is decreasing, but for sure it is decreasing because government is doing so much. ANMs are going home to home, house to house, and asking pregnant females, and they are giving tetanus vaccination at their place. They're bringing into hospitals, ambulance services are provided, all those things. But somewhere, 100% correction cannot be made in such a vast country. So still, we are seeing that in villages or small towns, there are quacks who have built up their own nursing homes, who wear some, who have worked under some doctor and all, and I think to suppress them, to stop those things, government has made ANMs, this compulsory visits of ANMs to each household. So yes, maternal mortality is decreasing, but all other things are also coming up, like mental stress post-delivery is coming up, and because of late marriages and late conception, comorbidities during pregnancy, diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune disease, these have now risen up. And there are different reasons of maternal, either we say morbidity or mortality, which like previously it was anemia or some very preventable things, now again are preventable, but lifestyle disorders which have come up in maternal mortality.
Right. So staying with this question, I mean, you did mention that, especially in rural India, there are smaller units that are practicing medicine and gynecology. How can we raise awareness, especially in those areas, so that, a woman knows about these things and is able to take decisions in regard to her reproductive and sexual health? So I'll stay with you for this, and then we'll move to.
Okay, so Jyotsna, see, it's not hard for us to do anything. It's a digitalized world. Everybody has a mobile, every single person, even if it is a village. And they are very, I would say, open to use Instagram or Facebook or everything. So if we can market something as some kind of drink, which might increase your height, which might give you a good health, or morning after pills, which are very wrong. As a doctor, we do not recommend all those things. Why can't we just spread awareness through digital media, through those platforms, for them to use contraception, which is they are not aware about contraception. Their mothers, they have all the wrong myths around every kind of contraception. So they do not have a right to it. One thing, they do not, they have the wrong information about contraception. So this is really one thing. Like, how can we spread awareness? We can actually tell them that this is the, these are the contraceptive methods. These are your preventive methods. We should go to doctor and ask them pap smear, what is pap smear? And now next year onwards, we would be getting HPV vaccination. And I think government would be supplying at a very cheaper place. So how to prevent cervical cancer, how to use condom to prevent cervical cancer, how to prevent unwanted pregnancies. So all these things are actually, we can spread awareness, and digitalization has made it so easy, isn't it, Dr. Mukta? Would you not agree with me on that? That everybody, like, we may have this thing, our mates are using mobile, and like we are those little washes which we totally condemn, that should not be used. Everybody knows how to use, and we condemn that. But right things are not spread in right way. If we want to spread, if we want the information to reach to them, it can be very easily done. in today's this thing. But the thing is that we should know what has to be spread. What is right thing? If one ad can spread that okay, girl is not for Kanya Dan and all those things, why can't we spread all these things?
Absolutely.
It is it's actually achievable, Jyotsna.
So I'll come to Dr. Malik, I'll come to you, I'll come back to you, and I'll get your views now on, in terms of awareness, like we just heard, what are the methods that we can use to increase awareness? And what is before we go to that, what, in your opinion, is the state of awareness right now?
Well, we are now in our 7th decade after independence. I would say we are 70 years plus. And if you look around, yes, the awareness about everything has increased. We have made massive strides in our progress. The longevity of men and women have increased. We know that they live for a longer time now. And so also the awareness is gradually increasing. See, nothing can happen in a day. If you look at you asked this question from Dr. Kalra about the maternal mortality. If you just look at the maternal mortality, look at the way it has come down. We have been able to achieve nearly what we were supposed to in 2020. We have achieved that. And I think by 2030, we would be achieving the goal that the WHO has set for us. So we are not doing badly, but like she says, there has to be a conviction. Suppose and that has to come at a national level from the government. You know, we have lots of NGOs working, no doubt about it. And all of us are a drop in the ocean, as you would say, and we all have to do our bit. But then when you see these figures that when you're talking about, say, maternal mortality or child, neonatal, perinatal mortality, etc., it's always national levels. You know, it's not, it cannot be achieved if there is a small NGO working towards it. So what she says is absolutely correct. If you look at the history of vaccination in the country, in antenatal mothers, it really took off once the television started advertising about taking antenatal tetanus injections during pregnancy. That was the time that it really took off. After that, there was no problem for the ANMs also to go and give it. So awareness, yes, is required, but I think we are moving in the right direction. India is a very large country and very populous with different kinds. I would say we are a Europe in a way, because that's why we are called a continent, isn't it? So we have different ideologies, we have different ethnicities, we have so many things happening. I think Dr. Kshitij will agree with me, what is happening in Rajasthan will not happen in Delhi. You know, things are different everywhere. So for that, we need to basically understand what is, like she said, social media, and of course, all this is definitely making a lot of difference. We can use it, but I would say that it has to come from the government. Nothing can change unless it comes from and the government is trying. We can't say that it isn't. The government is not. We can't. That's my take on it.
Yeah. I'll come to you, Dr. Murdia. Actually, you can give your views on this. And then we'll talk a little bit about how, whether IVF, the patients have increased, what are the reasons for it, or you feel that couples are now not wanting to opt for IVF, again, reasons. So we'll get your view on that. But if you'd like to add something to what Dr. Malik has just said.
I think everybody has summarized, but the key point is, I think India is a vast country and we do have a very strong public health system when it comes to the ANMs, GNMs and ASHA workers giving vaccinations. We have seen in COVID how India has done superiorly well compared to any of the global peers, right? So I think we need continuous push from the government side on the top on these ground level workers. I think a lot to do with the digital awareness and awareness from the celebrities in the TV ads or other things that could prompt these ASHA workers and people also to start taking up all those vaccinations or deliveries at the hospital to reduce the maternal mortality. And I think we as corporates, every one of us are doing their bit in terms of the CSR activities that we do about promoting menstrual hygiene, about promoting awareness about fertility, sexual reproductive health, and, anemia and other things. Every corporate in their capacity in their region are doing their bit. But I think if the ultimate push comes from the government, I think everybody can contribute, and we've seen the recent focus by the government in this union budget about anemia and pushing on anemia, because that's a common problem that we see in the pregnant mothers as well. So I think that's my take on the overall maternal mortality and how things should be.
Dr. Kapil, I'd like to add something.
Yeah, what I want to add is sexual health is totally a different topic. Sexual health is not good in India. It is improving, but it is such a taboo, talking about sex.
Yeah.
Girls come to us, here we practice. I practice in Gurgaon. Everyone is practicing big cities. Yeah. The girls come alone and we take it as an opportunity, even if a 16, 17-year-old girl is coming about sexual health. They know only about contraception, right? They will not talk to their mothers about it.
Yeah.
And the mothers don't take it well. Urban mothers don't take it well if the child is. Then we talk about safe practices and sexual health, how you are. It's so important. Why is it a taboo? We have to reach out to the mothers. Rural area also we should try to reach out, because sexual health is important for everyone.
Yeah.
The women should be respecting their bodies, respecting their partners. They should enjoy it. Contraception comes later. And government can talk only about contraception. Naturally, they will not talk about these things. So we have to reach out to the local levels in villages, that is panchayats and all. The panchayats should have the women head, right? The ladies should be, it's always the male, usually the male who's the panchayat head. Why can't the woman head, and so many women will be able to go to her?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what government has done is really improve the roads and all. As far as the maternal mortality is concerned, there are PHC centers are there for them. They are given free medicines and tetanus injections. But what about the roads? The roads, they have worked a lot on the roads, but still, if they go into labor at night, they will not be able to reach the centers. They don't even have light and basic facilities there. They deliver there, and our major population is sitting there. So we have to target them also.
Right.
So lots to go into it still.
Yes, yes. A lot of good points made here. I will come back to you, Dr. Murthy. We were going to talk about the IVF space and what's happening in it.
Yeah, so I think the and then Dr. Sonia Malik would agree to it. As far as the population statistics are concerned, India should be doing somewhere around 4 to 5 lakh IVF cycles in a year. If I just consider the population statistics and how many people suffer from infertility and how many require IVF. But as a country now, we could be somewhere between 2 lakh to 2.5 lakh IVF cycles. And there are obviously various reasons behind awareness, affordability, the success rates, and the trust. I think which one good thing that has happened in the last 1 year is about the ART bill we've discussed, that patients would feel much more confident. And I think for any sector to develop, you need capital to come in from various sources. One big change that I have noticed in the last 5 years, having worked with many private equity players, is the questions around uncertainty of the whole IVF sector or whole IVF industry in the country. Now, I think they feel much more confident and relaxed, spending time about IVF chains in the India, willing to put that more capital behind developing the whole sector. And you need that capital to develop the sector. It's a very patient capital, so that as a business, as an entrepreneur, as a promoter, you don't feel the need to quickly earn money and you place profits before patients. That would not happen, because there's somebody who's backing you, who's has that patience to put that money and wait for the next 5 or 10 years. I think secondly, that capital is a very ethical capital in terms of they would always push you to increase your bar of practice, put in more and more governance around the whole value chain that you do, put in more and more compliance and systems and processes behind every treatment that you do. So I think all in all, we see a very good next 5 or 10 years, a decade coming for the entire IVF as an organization or industry or sector, whichever way you put in, because putting in the ART Act in place, I think a lot of these malpractices will go out. A lot of foreign capital is attracted to the country. Whenever these capital come into the country, they will increase your level of practice, they'll increase your governance, they'll increase your compliances, and ultimately the patients and the entire organization or sector gets benefited by having these ART bill in place and these capital coming into the country. So I think overall it's a very positive move, and I see in the next few years India reaching to that helm of the global numbers in fertility, that we can very rightly call India as the number one in terms of fertility treatments being offered, in terms of success being observed in whatever patient treatment cycles that we do.
Right. I know you have a hard stop at 4:30, but before there's still 2 minutes to go. So before I let you go, one question I have for you: a woman leader who you look up to.
I think there are many women leaders in different sectors that I look up to, but I would not want to single out one woman. I think there are many women who've done great in their fields, and we know at a time in Rajasthan we had Vasundhara Raje, at central level we had Sonia Gandhi, so we had all women leadership. I think, given this platform in these discussions that happen on Women's Day, I think it's a good platform. It's not just about discussion. We should place equality, and we should practice in our real life as well. So I think India is a very diverse country, and I think many women have done significantly good in their own spaces. So I just salute to all the women who have done great and who have not done great but still are working, because it's too much of a effort from a female, balancing the family at home and working also. And I think I was listening to a few of the earlier panel discussions. A woman does not get that support to excel in her life, right? A male who's excelling in his life probably has that support from the wife or other people at home, that they are managing the kids, they're managing the family, so that a man can put extreme amount of energy and time into the business or into the things that they're doing. Where is that support coming for a female in the whole ecosystem? That is where it is missing, I think. So I think, females who have done exceptionally well are superwomen, managing both family and work at the same time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll stay with you, Dr. Sonia Malik. I'll come to you now. We've spoken about a lot of important aspects that needed to be spoken about. Awareness, sexual health. We've spoken about the ART bill, the positives. And now let's, today we've spoken in the earlier panel discussions a lot about where India is at in terms of gender equality. And while there's a lot of conversation happening about it, we still have a long way to go. So I don't know if you all heard the earlier discussions, but we have been ranked 135 on a list of 146 countries studied for gender equality. In fact, Bangladesh and Nepal, outperform India. So can you imagine, these are numbers, given that there's a lot of support, like he said right now, Dr. Murthy, that, we need to support women. We spoke about mentorship earlier. We, spoke about how families need to support women. Now I'm going to ask you, each of you, what have been, as working women professionals in your life, what has been one of the high points? And if you'd like to talk about a challenge that you overcame, and what is it that you've seen as a woman, working woman, that have been sort of hurdles?
Who are you asking me?
Hanji.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I've been lucky. I was born to a family where the men were very, very, very modern in their approach. My father was very, very modern. We were 3 sisters. We never had a brother. Nobody talked about it. We never missed a brother on Rakhi. We never missed a brother on any of those festivals. It was a very liberated kind of an environment. And so I grew up like that. And nobody ever told me not to do this and not to do that. We were allowed to do, but somewhere, basically it was the society around which made you do what you did and what you didn't, which is happening even today. And then once you enter medical school, I think the 2 girls will agree with me. When you enter med school, the first thing that you get to know is that there is no man doctor and there is no woman doctor. You're just doctors. And hence, you're not supposed to say no to examining a male patient and vice versa. So we were working, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand. I never saw any disparity happening in my medical school life, and I never met with any hurdles then. That's what I said. I've been lucky. I've never come across any obstacle that way. The only thing is, yes, the challenge in my life has been that I lost my husband very early after getting into practice. So practice had been a challenge, getting into it alone and trying to achieve what I wanted to all by myself. So that would have been a challenge. And yes, I mean, I think every woman has the capability of accepting challenges and moving on. There are so many women who have done that. And so I think I was able to manage whatever I could. Really nothing spectacular, I would say.
Oh, you've done spectacularly well. We all know. So I'll come to you, Dr. Kapila. I can see my colleague Resham appeared on the screen, which means that we're running out of time.
Time to go. Yeah.
So we'll just go to Dr. Kapila. I'll come to you about a challenge or closing remarks and a woman leader you look up to.
See, like Dr. Sonia Malik said, I actually haven't faced anything of this sort. This question is coming to a wrong panel. We doctors, we don't have that kind of a problem at all.
That's very good. That's very good.
We are gynecologists, all the time we are working, reading a book, seeing patients. There is no time for anything else.
Yeah.
So and now that we are gynecologists, it is a woman-dominated field altogether. But when I was in AFMC there were 18 trainees, 16 were males and 2 were females. And actually, yes, I would fight with them. Raat ko jab call aati thi na, so there used to be one room for the male residents and one for the female residents. They would tell me, you go first. I said, why should I go? You go first. I'll keep sitting here. So I would make them go first. A little bit of fight used to happen. And that is all. I just remembered while talking to you.
Okay. Can we get your closing remarks and a woman leader you look up to? And then I'd ask Dr. Kalra the same thing.
The leader I look up to is my mother.
That's
she has taught me, like who else? She has taught me spirituality, mental health, physical health. And the best thing that she's given me on the platter is to be very happy all the time and get along with people of all strata. So, and this is what makes you a leader. And this is how I look up to her.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dr. Kalra, I'd get your views on the woman leader you look up to and any closing remarks.
Okay, so Jyotsna, I'll make use of your platform to tell here that a common woman, we see patients every day, and the pain of those female patients, like we have done in government hospital, Dr. Mukta would absolutely agree with me that we have seen patients delivering boys and killing them right there in the government hospital floor, or strangulating a female child, which is where we see the reality that we might be lucky. We as a doctors, we never faced anything like Dr. Sonia said. She was 3 sisters and even me, but we never faced any challenge. But when we see those girls who are delivering girls repeatedly and killing them right there in front of our eyes, that's what the courage is. Sometimes I've seen those girls getting killed because those mothers did not want them to have the same life what they have been living. The life of dependency, life of uneducated mother who is not able to take care of her girl child. So I think a common female, a common woman is the women we look up to, that she has so much of courage and she is still trying to take care of her daughters, and she doesn't want her daughters to be in the same whatever she has gone through is one. And my role models, I actually extract courage from their lives. I would say that absolutely. Government hospital, we have seen so much of pain. Even when I delivered a girl child, I also faced the same thing, that like nobody distributed sweets and they were not liking that. I could actually feel their pain, but I was educated. I could actually sail through that phase of postpartum blues or after delivering a girl child and all. But because I was educated, I could stand for myself. They could not, they cannot, but still they try to actually give those girls a better life. And I think a common woman is my role model.
Very well said. I think the common woman, the Indian woman, is everybody's role model. Thank you so much, doctors, for joining us. I'm going to hand over to Resham.
Thank you. Thank you, doctors. Thank you, Ms. Sharma, for this insightful discussion. Till now, we were discussing and we were having leaders from healthcare or well-being world. But now the time is to have people leaders who will be talking how the women is leading the verticals in the corporate landscapes, and they'll be talking about breaking the glass ceiling with technology. Is technological advancements at work becoming another glass ceiling or an enabler for women? Just to understand why some women continue to thrive, continue to progress, and why some not. The access to mentorship still remains a challenge for many women, but to understand this better, let me welcome our next set of panelists. Please help me welcome Anjali Raghuvanshi, who is Chief People Officer, Randstad India. We have Ms. Niharika Mohan Vohra, who is CHRO, Luminous Power Technologies. We have Ruhi Pandey, who is CHRO, Godrej Capital. We have Vaishnavi Shukla, who is HR Head, Comviva. And to steer this conversation, we have with us Ms. Sugan Behel, who is Editorial Lead for BW People. Over to you, Sugan.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Resham. And it's a pleasure for all of us to be speaking with you. I understand that we've been a bit of delay in terms of running this panel, but you could see how the conversations were steering, and it was just not possible for the moderators to actually stop them. In each panel, we see a number of knowledgeable leaders who were there, and they've actually, imparted great knowledge to people from their own fraternity. But I'd like to welcome everyone. And on behalf of Anjali, I know that she was supposed to join, but because she wasn't keeping well, so her colleague Divya has joined us. Divya, we welcome you.
Thank you, Sugan.
So just a small introduction of what we'll be speaking about today. So our topic of conversation is technological advancement at work becoming a glass ceiling or an enabler for women? So despite significant promotions of diversity in companies as well as in legislation for equal opportunities for men and women, it must be noted that women still remain largely in the minority in decision-making positions. And also with the ongoing technological advancements too in every field, actually both the genders at certain point in working are facing difficulties in coping up. Women specifically feel that in certain situations, they were at ease while they were following the traditional ways of working. For instance, making handy notes, they considered far more better than working on, increasing their typing speeds. So it's just an example that I could quote, and now I open the forum to all you women. How, according to you, has technological advancements impacted the workforce gender gap, particularly in the women's segment? We can begin with Niharika.
Hi, Sugandh. How are you?
All great, all great. Thank you so much for asking.
All right. So I think I go back to what I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to give two sides, to the answer that you've asked me. I think technological advancement has pervaded all, right? And especially over the last 2 years with COVID coming in, everyone had to transform. Companies had to transform, business had to transform, people had to transform. And irrespective of gender, because the reliance on technology was so high. Any sector that you look at, the buying pattern from the consumer changed. We all became more concerned about online, right? We've all started buying groceries online. And therefore, technology pervaded each and every part of our lives. As I said earlier, it impacted both men and women. Now the challenge is, and the way I see this is that for all of us, we have to spend a little bit more time in terms of learning what the technology brings to us. How is it that we need to change? How is it that we need to skill, reskill, and what do we need to do? So that's one side. Second, I think the way I look at it is that COVID was also a blessing in disguise for so many, right? Uh, Flexible work options became a work of life. We just have to look at 2 years back, all of us were struggling in some way to get this norm going in the organization. So there were a lot of naysayers that this will not succeed as a model. But now you have hybrid workplace, which exists. That has been a blessing in disguise for working women. And therefore, I say technology has enabled them more, definitely. They're able to work from, women are able to work from whichever corners that they are in. The concept of jobs itself has changed. So we have the concept of gig workers, which have also come in, all a boom for women workers, right? And that's how I see it. Can we do more? Definitely. I think that's the question which you have. We can definitely do more to get more women in. But curiously, I was looking at some of the stats. The women who are working in technology is actually more than the women in workforce. So, and I was looking at certain global facts, which was an interesting take for me. And then I looked at how are we in terms of women percentage in R&D at Luminous. Again, it's a very healthy percentage vis-a-vis the number of women I have holistically. So I think in a nutshell, Sugandh, it has provided an opportunity. It has also led to its challenges. So let's not forget that. And the challenges have been gender agnostic. And I think as organizations and as leaders, it becomes very important for us to ensure that we reskill our employees, again, being gender agnostic, so that they're able to adapt to technology way faster and able to give their output. That's how I would like to summarize your question, Sugandh.
Fair enough, Niharika. I believe you've pointed out the issues in a pretty systematic manner. Ruhi, do you have anything to add to it?
No, I resonate with Niharika. I mean, technology has in many ways been a boon, and advancement in automation and digital technologies, while has created many jobs, it has also led to the moving away of a lot of jobs. And that continues even as we talk today. Lots of jobs losses is what you keep saying in newspapers almost on a daily basis. Is there enough data to point out that more women have lost out than men? Actually, I couldn't come across any research. The 2-3 thoughts which were left in my mind, which when I was reflecting on this question, is twofold. One is when men and women get displaced out of their jobs, I believe that the resilience of women to reskill, the opportunities available for women to reskill and move to some other jobs, or at the speed at which they can do it, perhaps is a little slower than men. So their ability to deploy out and get into something newer is coming in the way. The second problem is that a lot of lower order jobs are getting displaced. You don't find specialized jobs getting displaced. You don't find middle order jobs getting displaced as much as lower order. And considering that a lot of your women, even in the current statistics, if you see as you go higher the rung, number of women keeps falling. Considering the representation of women is higher there, that could be perhaps one of the reasons why women might be getting displaced more. But the boon side of it is also true, that the technological advancements, the COVID and the gig economy have also brought to the fore a lot more women being able to work out of remote locations, out of their homes, get into social media platforms, be a part of the gig economy. A lot of women have turned entrepreneur. I was looking at the fact that why only corporates, but a lot of women have turned entrepreneur. They have started doing businesses, which they are, promoting through the use of social media technologies, which is also heartening. So perhaps gig economy, entrepreneurship is something which women have adopted to more. But the only reason I could think of why women might be falling out of the workplace faster than men could be only these two. One, their ability to reskill and get redeployed. And secondly, the fact that they are more available or more present in the lower echelons. So those
actually, the two aspects that you've pointed out is actually the sole reason, because while I was also doing my own research on this aspect, I could also come across these two major these two aspects. Vaishnavi, do you have anything new to add to it? I mean, I believe you must be resonating with what both Niharika and Ruhi have said. But from your experience, anything that you would like to add to it?
No, in interest of time, I think I'd like to resonate with what my fellow colleagues have already said. Maybe just one point to add. We have to actually bifurcate, or rather look at the problem with slightly different lens. We may have to categorize the societies in a different segment. So I believe if you look at the people who are already deployed, who are probably a little bit skilled at some juncture of their career, already started, they were more benefited by some of the advancement that were launched, and the accessibility to those part and upskilling, etc., was higher. But if you look at the other segment, which was actually getting into the corporates, or probably getting into the graduations or post-graduation, or maybe getting that stage that they can get the required skill and be deployed, I think that did not get benefited. Probably we need master skills of policies and projects to bridge that gap of people who are at the stage and who are people who are about to get to that stage. Maybe what we are addressing right now is only one segment which are already at that stage and there is a data around it. But unfortunately, there isn't enough data or statistics to talk about the people or the workforce, especially the women workforce, who haven't reached at that stage.
Okay.
So I think that's another lens. So maybe we corporate and the government and the media and the NGOs and social platforms have to come together to address that. Unless that will happen, unfortunately, as Ruhi was trying to say, as you move up the ladder, you will see less females coming up. Already there's a number of reasons why people probably not able to survive.
The more you lead on to the leadership level, the number of
so it will go blank. There's no funnel. In sales, it's called pipeline. So unless the corporates and governments will come together to build a pipeline, unfortunately, the funnel will continue to fail us on the higher positions.
Very rightly, you've pointed out this aspect. What is the need of government as well as organizations to fill in to such gaps? Which takes me to my next question. In what ways do you think technology, can perpetuate biases and discriminations against women in workplaces? Basically, how should companies tackle this issue if at all? I wouldn't say if, because across the sectors, most of the companies are facing these biases. So, we can begin this time. We can begin with Divya and take your views on the same as to what can organizations do to curb this issue.
Thank you, Sugandh. So we have to understand that algorithms and AI systems inherit biases from their developers, and artificial intelligence does play a big role when it comes to hiring practices that an organization adopts. So it also has a high possibility of leading to discriminatory outcomes in hiring, sometimes promotions, and even performance evaluations. So an artificial intelligence system operates on and learns from the data it's being fed. So when that data is generated by and collected from humans, it does carry all the biases that we do, including a certain bias about women. So the result, firms that develop technologies that reinforce inequality. So for example, we have seen that key recruitment algorithms have been shut down for favoring male candidates, and how facial recognition technologies have been called out for disproportionately misidentified women. And researchers have found that hiring technologies unfairly screening women in the job application process. Additionally, in tech companies, while I agree with Niharika, there are a dominant women workforce there. However, in the leadership positions, we still see underrepresentation. So this could lead to lack of diverse perspectives and perpetuate biases within the industry. To tackle these issues, on the other hand, women need to be provided with a right support system, a system that enables and empowers women to bring out the best of their potential. And we have when we have more female role models in the field and in senior management, it does inspire other women to follow. From a technology perspective, developers will have to be very conscious not to build bias into the code. And for companies, it calls for clear introspection of the changes it needs to adapt, consciously striving to increase diversity in their hiring practices, or providing upskilling opportunities for women, focusing on equal pay, and closing on gender gaps in leadership positions are great ways to eliminate biases. And I would also urge our women in the workforce to focus on building capabilities and work around their strengths that can help them stay ahead and grab opportunities as they come along.
Beautifully curated, Divya. It seems as if, you've been dealing with the same issue within the organization, and it is something that you've crafted that, you're able to give out the input in such a holistic manner. Niharika, do you have anything to add to it? Something that you've been specifically doing within your own organizations as well, and you would want people to know?
A very loaded question that you've asked, but let me try and address. And I'm going to take a little bit of step back to understand what's happening. So if we look at women and if we look at the number of women who actually take up STEM education, it is around 42%. I was looking at the stats, right? That's the pool of total graduates that you have. But by the time they reach the working sector, it's already gone down to 14%. So there is a gap there. So what is happening, right? I think this whole perception about, a woman should be in a particular field. And I think before this session, I heard someone saying that, it is taught to women that they should be in creative fields or linguistic, right? So I think the perceptions of the society influence a lot on women taking up careers in STEM. I think that's a big struggle for them, right? So the whole the number game that I just spoke about itself talks about it. So I think that's there. Divya has spoken about the advent of AI, and it's a vicious circle, and that's how I see it. See, if you look at the products which get designed, they are designed keeping men in the focus.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly, if you look at, first suitcases were designed for men because they never thought that women would be taking their own suitcases. So that's the kind of perception we had when products were built. Now, if your technology is kind of looking at one way, you have people within the sector who are only designing products for one gender, then we have a problem at hand, like who addresses the other gender, and that's what exists and that's what we need to do. In Luminous, there is a conscious effort to have a very healthy pipeline of women leaders. So we start at the base like anyone else, and we hire a lot of women from campuses. So we're trying to strengthen the base. I'm also happy to say that we have a very good representation of women in leadership team. I have 30% representation in women in leadership, right, which is a great percentage to have. And we also have other development programs, policies, and my policies are gender agnostic. See, when you're in a workforce, you cannot ignore one gender. So you have to take them along in the agenda.
Exactly.
So when I talk about my policies, they're enablers for anyone at a particular life stage. A parental leave is not just for a woman. A parental leave can also be for a male. So you have to ensure that you're taking the other gender along, otherwise they will feel marginalized. So we do a lot of that. And I think the last point, which as women leaders, and this is that we have to be conscious about, is that what is the advocacy that we're providing? I think that's a very important point. Are we uplifting other women? And how are we doing it? For me, the bottom line is that, because otherwise, typically speaking, it's the women who are bringing down women, and it's not just in the professional field, but also in personal spaces. So I think we as women have a strong role to play in lifting our own breed, if I may say so, and also ensuring that we have the advocacy of the other gender and take them along in the transformation journey.
Niharika, there is one aspect that I could find from your response, which was wherein you said that you have 30% of women at leadership or at board level. Could be anything. For many organizations today, having women or having people from marginalized group is more of tokenism. We have 30% women, we have 40% women, but what is the growth percentage of those women within your own organization? Are all those 30% of women getting that ladder to success? Or, there are men or there are people from different areas who are making glass ceilings for them at certain stages. Let's say tech is becoming a glass ceiling for them. There could be other aspects to it as well. So having women in the leadership or within the board level is is actually, just a matter of tokenism. I would like Ruhi to actually elucidate on it as to I am clear in this scenario, but you might have a different view to it, or you might want to explain it in a better format. So, what is your view on the same? And in this way, how should companies actually map their growth? Just having women in board is not going to solve the problem. We need to give them a roadmap.
Understood. So, what happens, the 30% at the top level, and we are also fortunate enough to have an equally good number. What it does is it tells women who are joining your organization at a pipeline or an entry level that there is no glass ceiling. One of the people I remember who joined us from a public sector organization, one of the key reasons she told me why she joined us is because 3 women interviewed her. And thereby there is no glass ceiling. I can grow to any level in this organization. So I think having women in top level, and not just at the board, it's actually at execution senior management level where you need women. Board, yes, is absolutely required. But when women see other women leaders, they get very inspired. They feel that there is no glass ceiling. Secondly, they have role models. There are success stories which also play a role in ensuring that there is no bias when hiring managers are going out and hiring people. There's this innate bias which people carry when they're going out to hire. And actually, your previous question to ask was, can technology play a part? Absolutely. CV masking, ensuring that you use technology or an AI tool to sift through CVs is a great way of ensuring that the gender bias is removed. And you're getting CVs on men and women absolutely at the entry level stage. So when more and more men across the organization see that there are women who are doing well, who are in roles which are not traditional, they are not in HR, they are not in customer service, they are in sales, they are in business development, they are in strategy, is when this entire culture in the organization will get created, which will encourage more and more hiring managers to go out there and recruit more women. Secondly, organizations should have, and to absolutely, Sugandh, I agree to your point, that just having women at the top leadership doesn't make sense. How do you ensure that women from your junior management are going into middle management, middle management to top level? Again, analytics and tech can play a very important part. Organizations should run this statistic and understand where these biases exist by looking at data. Is 360 being fair to women? Is your fair share of gender parity equity survey of pay? Looking at that, looking at data across promotions, looking at data across performance. If AI and technology can be used across studying these, ensuring that these points where biases can exist are eradicated, you will have a gender agnostic organization. Last but not the least, I love the point which Niharika made. Men have to be allies. How do you ensure that the culture of the organization ensures that men become allies? I would say these would be a few of my points.
Vaishnavi, do you have anything to add to it? Something, that you within your organizations also must be doing?
Yeah, definitely. Very well covered, Niharika and Ruhi. When you have such women, such powerful women at the stage, it is such a wonderful to be, you have to talk less, everything will be covered largely.
No, we are fortunate enough to have,
You've been very kind, Vaishnavi, very kind.
Thank you so much. No, that's the fact. I personally feel, and that's what we at Comviva believe, is that cascading of success works best when you have use cases. I'm sure people at the IT industry would, able to more understand this term, which is about successful use cases. So when you have brand ambassador, your male leaders acting as a brand ambassador to successful use cases of how have organization lift up to the women in not only by just bringing them to a certain level, but across the level, how have they been supported. I think that's when you build a successful use case. And I think at Comviva, not only we maintain fine balance around our percentages of these women at the entry level, at the mid senior level, we also ensure the quality. So we focus a lot on building their quality and the skills so that the demand is automatically built. It is not to be pushed. So what we fundamentally believe is that when you have a diamond, it will shine automatically. So we invest a lot in upskilling, giving them platforms, having one-on-one conversations, having a lot of chat-based support.
No, it's important. It's even important because that is how you understand in a way of meeting their own personal ambitions as well.
Absolutely.
Everybody is working.
Yeah. So we believe a lot in enabling culture, and of course, we at the center of our culture believe in meritocracy, and that's a Conviva way we call it. We all talk about, and our leaders live that Conviva way. And Conviva way typically tells that believe in merit, build on skills, and shine out. So that's how we do it.
We would really like your inputs as well as to what you think about the question that I just asked, and what is new that you can add to it.
No, I completely second with what the others have told. In my view, as an organization, particularly within Randstad, if you ask me, we've taken very conscious and steady effort to support women in the last few years. For instance, equal hiring opportunities. One of the most important thing I would like to touch upon is definitely equal pay and also experience that we create for women at the workplace, which is equally important. So we run our internal pulse check surveys to gather voluntary self-identification data from our people. And then we correlate it with our engagement scores across drivers to see how our people are experiencing the workplace as well. Again, consciously, we keep bridging the equal pay status for our people as well. So these things really go a long way in putting in that trust inside our people and giving them confidence about the equality that we maintain within the organization.
Thank you so much, Divya. My last question to everyone, I would really like all you women, you're doing pretty well at your own stance, but you must also be looking at somebody or to somebody while you're performing your duties, because it is not just the work that you have to fulfill, you have responsibilities at home as well, managing families, managing career, both at the same time. So let's begin with Niharika, who's your role model? Who is it that you look up to and why? What is it one aspect or that one quality that you would like to imbibe or you have already imbibed?
I think I'm going to give a very cliched answer, but for me, it's my sister. She is in the field of media, journalism, just like you, right? She was with NDTV. She writes for Gulf News. She has her own channel. She's a mother of two, and she has a husband who travels quite a bit. So I think she is my role model for a lot of reasons. One is taking up journalism when it was not easy. So I'm talking about numerous years back. So the persistence and the perseverance and the resilience that she had, and she still has, the ability to manage so many variables, right? And still able to manage her professional front with flying colors. I think she does a fabulous job. So we talk about women and superwomen, although I honestly believe that one should not strive to be a superwoman, right? Because if one does it, then one falls flat in one's own perceptions. But I think I really look up to her in terms of how she's managed her entire ecosystem. She hasn't left working. She's continued to work in an area in journalism which is not so easy. I would say she's one of my role models, definitely.
Fair enough. I believe you must have learned certain qualities from her that you're talking about her today. There must be something very exciting about her that has excited you to make her as your role model.
Perseverance, resilience, ability to manage so many variables, right? And she does it with a flying color and a smile on her face.
I'm sure. Ruhi, over to you.
Yeah, well, my role model would be Nisa Godrej. She's our chairperson. And I genuinely believe that she's one of the boldest women I've ever met. She's so clear. She drives the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda right from the top. We were the first company to sign the LGBTQ pact with UN to provide a safe place. And we were the people who were in support of LGBTQ, even at a time when 377 still existed in the country. She was the first person who went out and said, I stand by LGBTQ, and not just for women. We work a lot with the LGBTQ community, with the trans community. And in fact, I wanted to read out a very nice quote by her, which has always inspired me. So she says, inclusivity does mean innovation. The more inclusive you are, the more debates you can have, the less hierarchy you have, the faster it is to recover from failure. If you think everyone should talk like me, be like me, look like me, have the same background as me, I don't think that would work, and it will lead to a lot of compromises. So she truly believed that inclusivity is leading to innovation, and that's why the Godrej Group strongly stands by diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Very beautifully said. Very beautifully said.
Thank you so much.
Vaishnavi, what's your take? Who's your role model and why?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think I would like to name two women who I personally find very, very inspiring. One is Kalpana Chawla and the other one is Sushma Swaraj. I personally feel that the kind of, breaking stereotype breaking Kalpana Chawla did made an impact on heart of billions of people, especially women, young women, young girls who were inspiring to get into the different fields, and they got to see real role model there. Secondly, Sushma Swaraj, because I think what I really see, apart from any political linkage, as a woman, I saw her being absolutely a firm believer of how a deep-rooted fundamental belief in your own culture, your own support system, your own family can drive success to you. I think she used all those natural skills to her flair, and the kind of magic she did in her department, in her ministry, was still probably a role model to many of them who were filling in that gap. I remember our famous S. Jaishankar Prasad also paying highly of, she speaks very highly of Sushma Swaraj himself. So I think the kind of messages that she has driven to the females who pursuing political career, I think that's immense potential for people to learn from her. So I believe these two. While some of the things that I can talk from what Kalpana Chawla said, maybe inspiring for most of us, is that's her quote, and which I fundamentally believe is, the path from dreams to success does exist. May you have the vision to find it, the courage to get onto it, and the perseverance to follow it. So wishing all of us a great journey ahead is what I can say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Beautiful quote by Kalpana. Divya, over to you. Who is your role model? Whom do you have been looking up to, and why? Is it something that has got your attention pretty recently, or you've been following her for years?
No, Sugandh, to me, inspiration comes from many women. In fact, along the way, it starts from my mother, in fact. From the time I was pursuing this whole ambition of being a HR, I was one of the first in the family to get into a corporate world. So it was pretty difficult to step out of that stereotype from within the family about going to work at all in the first place, otherwise pushing us to get married at a young age and all of that, right? So from there on, how my mother helped me in imbibing that confidence within me.
I guess that's a common mentor for everyone. So everyone must be looking up to their mothers at first.
Absolutely, yes. And there are other people. Example, Kalpana Chawla was one of my inspiration too. Mary Kom is another. I have always been inspired by how humble she has been and the many achievements that she has had, and how she's contributed back into the country, and how she's represented us very bravely in many forums. So I would definitely say there are inspirations I've taken from many along the way, including my boss, again, for how she is very high on her EQ abilities, and how she brings up a lot of trust and confidence within the organization. The many initiatives that we have, I think, initiated in these organizations is because of the creativity that she brings to the table. So I would say inspiration never stops. Today, by being here in this panel, I think I've taken some great points from the others, again, inspiring me to take back to my organization some great inputs. So I think all of this continue to inspire me and take me forward.
No, that's very kind of you to be taking notes from the discussions that are held, because the basic aim and agenda of having such discussions is to hear everyone's views. They might be doing something very different and very exciting within their own organizations, and it's good to learn from each other. Thank you so much, all you lovely ladies. You've taken out time for us, specifically imparted your knowledge, anecdotes, shared analysis to it. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really humbled to have you all on this panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Over to you, Resham.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sugandh, for such a lovely discussion. And it's really heartening to see wonderful ladies leading their respective sectors and companies. Whereas we know that women needs to be their own motivator, but this is the right time to have unequal policies to accelerate the growth of women across these sectors. We also got to know that brain has no gender. That means we need to give attention, give a priority, give all the due respect to women as well as to the other gender as well. As you rightly mentioned, across the corporate landscape as well, we need to take the other gender along with be it with the unequal policies as well. Women needs to be appreciated, and we wish all the perseverance, resilience to have the ability to manage it all, whereas it's their workplace or their houses. We know that there are some areas of improvement. There is huge room for improvement, but India has come a long way, and we are hopeful to see more women participating across the workforce in India and across the globe. Um, we are hopeful to see women breaking the ceilings across the sectors. I would like to thank all of the women leaders who joined in, all the speakers who joined in, and our moderators for the day for moderating such insightful and lively discussions. Tomorrow, again, we have a couple of discussions and conversations on the same similar lines where we will be taking this theme forward. Digit All with BW. Tomorrow, we will be having a set of entrepreneurs and investors talking about how technology has helped bringing in entrepreneurial equilibrium, and we'll be having Dr. Pankaj Mittal of Association of Indian Universities speaking with us. I'm looking forward to these insightful conversations tomorrow. I'd like to invite all the speakers and our audience to post their takeaways, their important key takeaways, or attractive sentences, statements you got from today's discussions on your social media handles. Tag BW. Don't forget to use the hashtag for the day, that is digit all with BW. I would like to, on behalf of BW Business World, thank you all for joining in for today. See you tomorrow from 2 p.m. same time, same place. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in.